and welcome to the future, otherwise known as episode 44 of Tomorrow's World Audit Time. Evening, Mark.
Evening, Russ. How are you?
Well, not as well as you, Mark, because I believe you recently had a little birthday, didn't you?
I did, yes. I don't know about recently at this point, Russell, but yes, I did have a birthday recently, yes.
And how old were you? How old were you?
Oh my God, I hadn't even thought of that. I was 44.
Oh, spooky.
Obviously, when we were originally going to record this episode, I was a mere young slip of a boy at the age of 43.
Yes. Yeah, apologies, listeners. This should have come out a long time ago, but I decided to disappear off on holiday to Italy. So this is the earliest possible opportunity we've been able to do it.
I think we've had two aborted attempts to go through it, but we just, there's no point in forcing these things.
No.
It's just, these are too well designed and curated for us to kind of, try and rush something horrible out on you.
No, you can't cut the gestation period of such a thing. I need to dig down to find every single little morsel of fact in every single cranny of the episode, which I think I've done quite well with this episode. But I think we have been punished, haven't we, Mark? Because we've lost one of our subscribers.
I completely understand.
Yeah. No hard feelings, Rod's Woolly Willy.
Don't make it. Don't. They don't get the right to be named, Russ.
Maybe
we do understand.
Maybe we can win him back.
Well, that's our hope. How do you know to him?
Oh yeah, no, of course, yeah.
I'm sure our audience are 50-50.
Absolutely, yes. So anyway, 44, Mark. I think this came to me almost subconsciously. I was thinking about what we could do an episode about, and suddenly I was thinking about the sitcom Bottom. And then I realised that famously their telephone number in Bottom is 444-4444. So I thought, maybe we should have a look at that. And, it's a good excuse as any. So I thought we would do the episode closest to what I think is probably the finest, most perfectly crafted half hour of sitcom ever made, which is the Gas Man episode of Bottom, which came out on the 27th of September 1991, so 2 days after this episode. I think it is still to this day holds up as one of the funniest things I've ever seen, and actually it does have a special place as being, when the first time I saw it, it remains to be the only comedy program to ever make a small amount of wee come out of me because I was laughing so much. Yeah, so very very fond place in my heart, Mark. I rewatched it again before this episode, laughed again, even though I know, all of the lines, engaging in my hobby of bus surfing, a nice steaming cold cup of tea, things like that. Loved it. What do you think about the episode, Mark? Do you like it?
Because I was thinking about Bottom as well, because obviously you mentioned this, and so I was thinking back to Bottom, and I myself and my dad watched it when it first came out, and it wasn't this episode, and I despite the extra weeks we've had to look things up, I completely forgotten that I meant to look this up. It's the episode where there was an episode where Rick Mail comes out of the bedroom and his pants are full of custard, and that was the loudest and hardest I had laughed, and my dad had laughed. We laughed together at the unexpected, incredible ridiculousness of it, and so there is a soft spot in my heart for Bottom, but I've not watched it for a very, very long time, and I think there was a part of me that assumed that it had probably dated quite badly. So this was the first time I'd watched this episode, maybe not in 30 years, but as close to, and I was pleasantly surprised at that it had not dated as badly as I had. In my head, it was completely scatological. Of course, it isn't.
No.
And I had forgotten just how hateful the two characters are, and how the scatological element of it works because they are so hateful, and they absolutely earn every comeuppance that they either give to each other or are, extensionally delivered. So yeah, I didn't laugh at it. I chuckled, but more like at just how smartly written it is. But the other thing I kind of realized is that it is all about Rick Mail's acting, his performance.
Yeah.
Without him, I don't know if this program works. It's his eyes. Every time his eyes are doing something completely different to what his mouth is saying and where he's looking and what he's punching. It's incredible. I thought that was really, really good. And, and actually this is a lovely little chamber piece, isn't it? Like it's just a 5-hander, right? And, it's just, and you don't know where it's going. Because at the beginning, I remember all of it at the beginning. And then I completely forgot about the neighbor. And then once you meet the neighbor.
Brian Glover.
It's Brian Glover, absolutely. And then I remember thinking, oh, now I remember, because you don't know, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't piss myself, Russ, but it was pleasant to see. It was good to see.
Yeah, I realised that Brian Glover is obviously an old friend of Rick Mayall's, because can you remember what else they're in together?
The Young Ones? Was he in The Young Ones as well?
No, American Werewolf in London. At the beginning of American Werewolf in London, when the main character go in and his mate go into the slaughtered lamb,
I remember,
slaughtered lamb, and Brian Glover goes, "Keep to the road, stay off the moor."
I remember that. And Rick Mayall
in the background. Rick Mayall is playing darts.
No,
yes,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow,
it's got to be one of his earliest roles, I would have thought. Yeah, so obviously not much to say about programming, and other than if you've never seen Bottom Gas or Bottom, then you should remedy that, because it's well worth watching. But I did have a look at the IMDb trivia section for this episode. I know there's a couple of really nerdy and uninteresting facts about the episode that I thought
Oh, how exciting. Well, Russell, please share them.
Firstly, this is the only episode where the gas meter is located in the living room. In other episodes, the gas meter can be seen on the wall in the hallway, a much more reasonable location for it.
Yep.
And plot hole, the gas man states he will be finishing work at 6 p.m. No explanation is given for why he calls at Rottweiler's house later the same evening. It's completely fallen apart for me now, Mark.
I have to say that last one has really annoyed me. There were no plot holes in it because it's barely a plot. Like the whole thing is whole, and they fill it with whatever is necessary to make you laugh. Do you not understand that? It's a contrivance. That's right, isn't it? Like it's not a plot; it's a contrivance. Yeah, oh, that's ridiculous.
I think the desire to find plot holes in fiction these days, the modern habit that everyone seems to have for doing that,
the cinema sin
just ruins everything, doesn't it?
No, absolutely, it's ridiculous.
Suspension of disbelief, Mark.
Correct.
If you want hard facts and truth, then don't watch fiction. Watch programs like Tomorrow's World. So shall we watch a program like Tomorrow's World?
Oh gosh, yes.
All right.
Bagsy, find the plot hole.
Actually, there is quite a lot of goofs in this episode, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Hi there and welcome back to a new series of Tomorrow's World. Later on, the latest for travellers, the suitcase that does about 200 miles to the gallon. In a moment, why the robot's world is buzzing about insects and tapping his way into a global network. John Diamond.
Hello. Yes, some of the people in here are swapping recipes. Others are swapping something rather less tasteful. And nobody's sure whether they're breaking the law.
Also tonight, the first in a series of visits to a clinic that treats sick babies before they're born. The discovery from the last century that'll go on shining into the next. And a report from Carmen Pryce on how the Swiss are racing to clean up their mountain air. But first...
Well, it's a new series, Mark, and they've decided to give us this sort of really exciting, dynamic intro. It feels like they're trying to sort of set themselves apart from the previous series and go, look, it's the 90s now. We've got a whole new exciting approach because we've got this sort of everyone's dynamic. They're all wandering around the studio. It cuts between them all. Yeah, it's pretty exciting, isn't
it? It's a classic Hollywood oneer, isn't it? With exciting new blocking brought in to because that's what kids love, blocking.
Yeah.
So it's very dynamic.
It's a shame Howard messes up his line
Yes.
But we're gonna see that a lot this episode.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately, this is, as you said, this is a gaff-filled episode, right?
Is it? Yes. Is it under rehearsed, or is it they're trying to do too much, or is it that they had a little party before the episode and they're all drunk?
I suspect you aren't trying to do too much if you have enough rehearsal time.
Yeah.
So I think it's under rehearsed. It definitely feels like. They are trying new things. So it definitely, and it clearly is live as well. So I think they didn't have enough opportunity to run this one through. Can I also just draw attention to the fact that R. Howard is wearing a bolo tie?
Oh yes, yeah. Actually, I did think, well, I'd better look into the bolo tie. You know.
Oh, did you?
I did. Yeah.
No wonder it took you 3 weeks to do the research.
It was only invented in the 1940s.
As recent as that?
Yeah. There's a cowboy called Victor Cedarstaff. He had a silver-trimmed hatband, and his hat blew off. And then he realised he didn't want to lose the hatband because it's got silver on it. So he put it around his neck. And his mate went, "That's a nice tie you got there." And Victor went,
"Well, that mate was wrong, right?"
And Victor went, "Oh, I might start selling these as ties." In April 22nd, 1971, it was declared the official neckwear of Arizona.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crikey.
I think he's our second bolo tie wearer we've seen ever.
Yes.
After that big fella in Colorado.
The big chap. Yeah. Which in our episode with the greatest outfits we will probably ever see in any Tomorrow's World.
Yeah. But obviously, immediately a front runner for close of the episode is the bolo tie, isn't it? It's going to be hard pressed to beat that.
It's such an odd choice, though, isn't it?
Oh, do you think Howard dresses himself, or do you think he just turns up and they just give him stuff?
Wardrobe. Just do you think that the part of the fun of their job is to see what ridiculous things he will actually comfortably wear? No, I do think he dresses himself. I'd be intrigued. Well, I mean, we know he ends up in Colorado. Spoiler alert for the plot, the Howard plot.
Oh yeah,
He does end up in Colorado. So maybe he just had a kind of a calling to like the. I mean, Colorado is in the West in that sense. I suppose it is, isn't it? But maybe just a calling to that kind of that lifestyle.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah. Well, yeah, and he starts us off with this first segment about wombats.
Well, this is a doll that dates back to 18th century Japan. And by putting this teacup on here, it's supposed to go whizzing off. It is 300 years old. Maybe we can forgive it for the time being. It's actually an automaton. And it is 300 years old, but they reckon that this is what sparked off Japan's love affair with robotics and, of course, the huge industrial success they've enjoyed since. These factory Japanese robots are currently on display in the Science Museum, and they're programmed to perform unusual tasks to demonstrate their amazing capabilities. But even doing their normal jobs, they work in a predictable environment. The dimensions of their surroundings are known, and they're programmed to act in a specific way. It's when robots have to deal with a changing environment, like we humans cope with all the time, that it does get more tricky. Well, the usual approach has been to try to make robots think like humans with a complex computer brain, but it hasn't worked out that well. So the latest research takes its inspiration from insects. The idea is to make the robots much more simple, but then to team them up to deal with complex tasks, just like ants working together. And researchers at the University of Salford have come up with this robot to demonstrate this new approach. Now, it doesn't have a central computer brain. Instead, it has simple electronic reflexes. And rather like the ant, I'm going to stand in its way, rather like the ant, it draws directly from its senses instead of using reasoning to interpret them. Now, what I'm doing is I'm blocking ultrasonic sensors in here, which first of all triggers the first reflex to stop, and then should trigger the second reflex to veer away. It obviously doesn't like my trousers. Well, eventually, teams of these will go together to perform much more complicated tasks than that. Have a look over here, though, because this is the next step with that same idea. Now, this thinks, looks, and is designed to walk like an insect, though it's still trying to find its feet a bit. It's actually 3 separate insects. I can split it apart like that. Now, each segment has its own transputer, a complete computer on a chip, so that its sensors and reflexes work independently. In fact, just this one is equivalent to the other robot that was trying to wander around over there. Now, you put those segments together, and the whole can do much more than any single part. After all, walking is much more complicated than scooting around on wheels. Now, shrink that complexity down to the size of an ant, and things could get really wild. Already, engineers are making mechanical devices the size of a microchip, and robots could be the next step. So here's some ideas the researchers have for the future. Micro-engineered silicon dust shifters that clean carpets. You just shake them on and leave them to it. Artery cleaners that you inject into the body. Swimming robots to maintain oil rigs. And planet colonizers that could alter an alien world long before man's arrival. The race is on to make the first robot ants to do real-life jobs. Who will be the winners? Japan or Salford?
Now, it seems whenever they have a robot in the studio, Mark, it's a troublemaker. It either doesn't do what they want it to do, or it's just really annoying. In this case, Howard has two robots, or automatons, neither of which comply with what his demonstration saw, do they? He's got this little Japanese old one that's meant to zoom off when he puts a cup of tea in it, doesn't move. And then he's got that one that he decides doesn't like his trousers because it's doesn't move out of his way. Do you reckon that's a sign that they're actually secretly more intelligent than we realise?
I can't lie, Russ. No, I don't. I just think they're rubbish. I think they're partly because they're rubbish and partly because they haven't been set up properly. Because the automaton one is interesting, isn't it? Because that really, there is no excuse for that not working. That is a little kind of what. Do you remember there used to be a place? I don't know, it might still be there, but there used to be a place in Covent Garden that just had those kind of clockwork style automatons.
Oh, did it? No.
Yeah. Oh, no, you don't remember that. Yeah, no, it was really, and some were really, really like advanced, and some were very simple. Like you turn the handle and this wooden bird would flap its wings, and it was all very. And some were really complex, using wooden gear, or just gears and wires and stuff like that. This is a wooden thing, which he tries to claim is 300 years old, but is clearly brand new. And the idea is, I think you put like a cup on its little tray, and the force of you pushing the tray down is enough to release the action, and it goes zooming off, and it does none of that. And that is not on the automaton's fault. I don't think you can blame that automaton, Russ. The ant, however, that's different. That's been brought in by some fancy team who are really proud of what they're doing, and they've Horlicksed it, Russ.
Yeah.
It's rubbish. It's a rubbish ant.
Those automatons, Mark, by the way, they're called karakuri. Karakuri. Yeah. That apparently they made loads of those. That tea serving one.
Yeah.
It's called a zashiki karakuri, powered by a wound spring made from whalebone.
Ooh.
But they made them for about 200 years. Clocks got imported from Europe, and the Japanese looked at these clocks and saw how clockwork worked, and went, "Oh, we could use these, gears and springs to do other things." And that's how they came up with the idea of these automatons. And if you look at the bottom of the dock there, Mark,
yeah,
that is a really good one.
It's huge.
That one, it picks up an arrow. It's got a bow, and it puts the arrow in the bow, and then fires the arrow at that target.
That's incredible.
Yeah, good, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Hugely impressive, right?
Yeah.
The engineering, the thought that has to go into that, and the problem solving, and I don't know how long that takes. And then obviously you layer on top of that the sheer artistry of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It looks stunning, and that's really incredible. Complete waste of time, but remarkable.
Do the Japanese have a lot of time on their hands? Because a lot of the things that like old Japanese customs and things tend to require a large amount of time. Like making samurai swords, they have to fold them over for again and again and again and again. Maybe they just have a lot of time on their hands. Even
their tea making ceremony is long, isn't it? I don't know. I doubt they did, but I suppose maybe that was the whole point. Was that like the richer you were, the more you could afford to take time to enjoy something? Or, I mean, I suppose ultimately, like, especially back then, a lot of wealth was time, was the ability to buy other people's time. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I mean, having watched Shogun, it's like, I didn't see any of these in Shogun. They did seem quite busy people.
And the top maker of them, who used to make them in the 1800s, was a man called Tanaka Hisashige, and who was known as the Japanese Thomas Edison, and he's the person that started the Toshiba company.
Oh, wow.
And one thing I always find, it seems to be particularly Japan, is that all of their technology companies are all like 150 years old.
Yeah,
aren't they?
they're really, really like Nintendo's 19th century as well, isn't it?
Yeah. We got another one like coming up later as well. Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, so then he goes on from that fun little robot that doesn't work properly to ant robots. Which is interesting is that he's got an ant robot there, and obviously this series we've just had the opening titles for the first time, and one of the things featured in the opening titles is an ant robot, although it's not the same ant robot as the one. Yeah, it looks better. The one in the title looks better, doesn't it?
Much better
than the one he's got. But I feel like ant robots you see them crop up quite a lot of the time, don't you? Like I feel like over the years they seem to experiment with ant robots quite a lot. I suppose they're quite stable, aren't they? Got 6 legs. I don't know, easy to replicate. I don't know.
I suppose it's that idea, isn't it, of like, ants are incredibly efficient when it comes to their ability to kind of lift stuff, but also they work together. So that the idea of swarming robots seems to be something that really obsesses robot inventors. They seem to be obsessed with this idea of robots that will be able to communicate and like multiply their abilities collectively.
Yeah, which sounds like probably the most dangerous type of robot.
I don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah, obviously it always makes me just think of the famous Kent Brockman line, I for one welcome our ant overlords.
Yes, absolutely.
There is a branch of robotics called swarm intelligence. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
No, study it, yes. Actually, ant robotics is a type of swarm robotics, which is derived from swarm intelligence. And they do a lot of it at Salford University, which is probably why that's where that one comes from.
Yes, because I thought it was quite interesting the way he says who's going to get there first, Japan or Salford. And I assume at the time it was a throwaway line, but actually Salford consistently comes up as like a centre of kind of robotic, a cutting edge of robotics. A lot of them happening in Salford. Like I think did we see an episode where there was the Robot World Cup and like it was a Salford University. Maybe it was UMissed or something like that. That was like in the final. Or I was like, no, that's not a joke. That's like they really are very good.
yeah, they've got one of the biggest robotics departments in the whole of Europe. But yeah, although the largest ever robot swarm was done by those blooming, what would you
Boston
call them?
Dynamics?
No, Harvard. It's Boston.
Harvard.
Actually, is Boston Dynamics at
MIT?
No,
I don't know actually. No, we discussed this. They were ex MIT, right?
In 2014 at Harvard, they managed to get 1,024 robots all to work together. But
to do what? to like steal girls' bras? What did they do?
I don't know. It didn't say actually. I couldn't find that out. No, I think the only current use that they are used, like this whole idea of swarm robotics is used for at the moment, is those drone displays.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The drone displays. Yeah.
There's plenty of other theoretical uses. I mean, he lists some on the show there. The other ones I've seen are search and rescue missions. You've got somebody who's trapped in a cave or something. You could send them all, and they could all go off in different directions to try and find them. Obviously, military surveillance or attacking people. Actually, they probably have done that, haven't they?
100%. There's no way they have not done that.
Yeah, and the idea that they could do 3D printing. So you could have them flying around and building something like almost like little flying, like little dozers from Fraggle Rock that flying around. The other interesting one I saw was you could make shape-changing speakers. So if you had them all working together, you could somehow get them to. But these are all flying. I noticed a lot that these all tend to be flying uses. I think that's probably. I guess swarming is more effective if you can do it in 3 dimensions. Whereas if you've just got ant robots, they can just do it on the ground, aren't they, or up a wall?
They are rather limited, aren't they, to however tall their legs are.
Yeah, and it's never spiders though, is it? It's always ants. Why do you reckon that is?
Fuck, you know why?
What about crabs?
That sideways thing that just wouldn't work either. Yeah, because once you put the eyes in the direction that the crab travels, they're no longer crabs, right?
Oh, that's a good point. But there's that thing, isn't it, that everything always evolves into a crab, doesn't it? Have you heard that fact?
No, I've not heard that fact. I've not heard that fact.
Yeah, no. So loads of the crabs that we have are not genetically related to each other in any way whatsoever. It's just that their separate lines of evolution has led them to evolve into crabs because everything eventually evolves into a crab. So, mark my words, Mark. These ant robots
Yeah, they're going to be crab robots.
They will become crab robots because they will realise that that's the best design at some point.
Well, today's the 16th of October, and I'm going to put that down in my diary, and let's see how we do. Mark my words, he says.
yeah.
I will mark them.
Anything else? No, I don't. Oh, I was just saying, is it a little bit? I'm just looking for this. Is it a little bit sexist? That's the.
I hadn't spotted that. Yeah, so the image they used to illustrate carpet cleaning is of a woman, and is it a little bit sexist? I think so.
Yeah,
you could have used anything. Like the thing is, she's not even really doesn't even look like she's actually cleaning a carpet. She's down on her knees. Like, almost looks like she's injecting something into the carpet. So they went out of the way to find a picture of a woman. So yes, I do think. I think it's cynically sexist, Russ. I would also like to point out that one of the examples Howard gives is cleaning an oil rig, Russ. So everyone at home, not put that down in your oil book jotter pad, because we're all going to be. This is our retirement plans, and this is going to pay out bigly.
Right. On to the next one. This is a good one, Mark.
At dawn tomorrow, a unique experiment begins. Biosphere 2, the prototype space colony in Arizona, is being sealed up, with 4 men and 4 women inside. It's an attempt to discover whether human beings can design a completely artificial world and whether they can live in it. Biosphere 2 has been built to imitate Biosphere 1, the Earth, so it's meant to be self-sustaining except for an external source of energy. It contains 3,800 species of plants and animals, existing in 6 different types of environment. And their interactions are supposed to generate enough air, food and water to support the inhabitants, the bionauts. But in spite of the excitement surrounding the project, there are doubts as to whether the building can be completely airtight and whether this massive experiment has any real scientific value. Its designers, however, are confident. They claim that if the bionauts survive their two-year confinement, it will prove that biospheres could support human colonies on distant planets indefinitely.
Big news, wasn't it? The biosphere at the time, Mark.
I
remember it. It was almost probably as trumpeted as space missions were, sort of thing. It was like a space mission on the ground, wasn't it?
It was huge news. It was gigantic news.
Yeah, I don't know whether they ever actually do an episode where they cover it more fully than this, or whether it's only ever going to be a news piece on Tomorrow's World. But because
I'd love to find out. I suspect that there might be a segment where like they go in maybe after all the bionauts are let loose. But yeah, this was such a big story, and I feel like maybe it was Blue Peter and Tomorrow's World, but like if there were a few programs who were tracking what was going on, and like it was people really seemed to be really invested in the success of the project. I suppose, yeah. Though I was never terribly sure what it would tell us.
No. I always wonder, do you think it inspired Big Brother as well? Because it basically was the original, like it's basically Big Brother, wasn't it? Without the cameras.
But without the cameras, yeah. I suppose, yeah. I mean, yeah. Actually, well, I mean, I suppose the bionauts are lucky that Biosphere 2 didn't happen during like the real rollout of the internet, because it would have been Big Brother, right?
Yeah.
We would have been watching them.
I was very interested. Well, actually, first of all, Kate sitting in a chair delivering the news.
Yeah.
Don't like it. Doesn't look right, does it?
It does not right. It looks wrong, Russ. It looks like she's aping, the 2 Ronnies. and I assume it's the producer who told us to do that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I go back to her 3 times this episode, and each time it doesn't.
It's just wrong.
It'd be okay if she's sitting on a stool, but it's the way she's slumped in that armchair. It just doesn't. Because I think they've done news things from a stool before or a desk.
Well, we have seen her in future episodes sitting in the chair. So this has legs. So like they don't scrap it quickly, but it's just it is very odd. It's very peculiar. Like I can't for the life of me. I mean, it's now been a month since I first watched this episode, and I watched it then a few times. So watching it now and kind of remembering how I felt originally, and then but also coming to it with fresh eyes, I cannot work out what vibe they're going for by it's like, it's not like it's Jack and Nori. If she was telling us a story, you'd understand, but she's not really.
No. Because you're used to news being delivered from behind a desk.
Yes, but she's not behind a desk.
No, because imagine if you watched like news at 10 and Trevor McDonald was just sitting in an armchair and there's no desk in front of him. It would look insane.
It would look insane. Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember? Well, I mean, there'll be some people listening to this who remember that mostly for ITV, but the interstitial pronouncements between programs would be delivered by a person sat in a chair with a microphone. I remember particularly UTV, Ulster TV. I think did it up until about 2 weeks ago. And that made sense. That's the idea of the TV presenter, right? When I'm presenting to you, but like, no, it's just, it doesn't work. And it's such a weird choice. It boggles my mind.
Anyway, she's talking about Biosphere 2. Like I said, I really enjoyed looking at Biosphere 2, so I thought I'd give you a quick rundown of it.
Please.
So basically, it's a hippie project, Mark. So there's one of these oil billionaires. That occasionally you get an oil billionaire who's a bit of a hippie. So they're not an evil capitalist like they normally are. They've inherited their oil billions and they just go around being a hippie. So there's this fella called Ed Bass.
They're like a scion, right? Is that the word that people often use for these oil baron scions? Yeah.
So Ed Bass, with his oil billions, met an ecologist called John P. Allen in the 1970s at a countercultural event where they used to do various hippie things to do with the planet and do theatre and dance and all sorts of stuff like that. Probably took lots of LSD, I would have thought, Mark. You don't know what they're like.
Hippies.
But they were big fans of our old friend Buckminster Fuller.
Of course.
Him and a few other people over the years had come up with the idea of spaceship Earth. And it's this concept that rather than the Earth being just a planet or a habitat for us, it's actually we are the crew of a spaceship. So the Earth, and if we are the crew of this spaceship, we should all be working together like a crew would, rather than squabbling and trying to take things off each other and all of this. And it became quite a popular concept in the sort of 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So part of this, so they wanted to sort of expand on this by creating sort of a miniature version of the Earth in this biosphere, which they called Biosphere 2 because the Earth is Biosphere 1. Mm-hmm. So they built it from. They started building it in 1987. Took them 4 years, and it cost $150 million.
That's so much money,
and it still remains to be the largest closed ecological system that's ever been made. Kind of, I don't know whether it influenced the Crystal Maze at all, but it had 7 different zones, so almost double what the Crystal Maze had. But but it had rainforest zone, ocean zone, which had its own coral reef, a mangrove zone, savanna zone, a fog desert. And the fog desert is like the Atacama, where it never rains and things get their moisture from fog. There was like an agricultural farm bit, and then there was like living quarters. They did 2 sets of experiment, like the 2 times where they sent people in for a protracted period. The first one, they managed to do it for 2 years, 91 to 93. Mm-hmm. And then there's a second one which only ran for about 4 or 5 months in 1994. They both had problems. The first one had serious problems because they sent 8 people in who were all like different experts and stuff. And one of them was a bloke called Roy Walford, who was somebody who discovered that low-calorie diets can prolong life. So he discovered that if he halved the calories that he fed rats, they would live for nearly twice as long. So he became obsessed with the idea of low-calorie diets. And so they made the mistake of asking him to work out how much food everyone would need.
Oh, my God.
So everybody, after
they put all their egg in one basket.
After a while, absolutely everyone was absolutely ravenously starving in the biosphere because they just couldn't. They didn't have enough. They weren't growing enough food to. I mean, they're growing enough food to survive. So Roy's calculations were correct in that manner, but they weren't growing enough food to not be hungry all the time and get really angry and irritable and tired, which is perfect when you're sealed inside a dome with 7 other people for 2 years without sort of ability to leave, which is the case because the dome was sealed behind when they went in. because the whole point was that nothing could come in from the outside, not even air.
Yeah.
So it was super airtight. It would only lose 10% of its air per year. Right. So it was like, yeah. So, but this was the problem. So they started doing things like breaking into the seed reserves to eat the seeds. so yeah, and also they had like lots of different. Obviously, had loads of different plants and animals that they had set up, and they had some pygmy goats. They had chickens, dwarf pigs. I like the way they had miniaturized animals.
Yeah,
I think got quite good. Yeah, they had some
Shetland ponies.
They had some fish, and they had like obviously pollinating insects because they wanted the plants to reproduce and all things like that. But what happened was that all of the nice animals all basically ended up. All the bees died and everything like that. And what took over was the cockroaches and these really hardcore ants. So the whole place got infested with cockroaches and ants, and all of the useful animals all just tended to die off. And so the plant.
So this really is actually a more perfect metaphor for what we're doing with the earth than they ever imagined, right?
Yeah. So then the plants started dying off as well. When it was only like certain weeds that were thriving.
Yum.
Yeah. And then obviously this affected the oxygen levels because there wasn't enough. The plants weren't producing enough oxygen because all of the plants there weren't enough of them anymore. So the amount of oxygen dropped to the point where all of the people started getting sleep apnea because they weren't getting enough oxygen. So in the end, they had to inject a load more oxygen into the experiment in 1993, thus making the experiment kind of void. Yeah. Because if they were on Mars or something, they wouldn't be able to do that, would they?
No.
Yeah, and the desert got too much condensation in it, so it got too wet, so it stopped being a desert. There was one point where, so because the crew were all angry and miserable, they all started arguing, and inevitably it split into two factions, two warring factions. So it's a perfect microcosm of human society. Yep. And there was one woman called Jane Poynter was ordered to leave because they decided she was too much of a troublemaker. One side decided she was too much of a troublemaker. But then she realised they couldn't make her leave because if they to leave, they would have to open up the doors, which would ruin the experiment. So she just didn't leave, which caused even more animosity. But yeah, and then outside the project, the old Ed Bass was getting a bit fed up with the people running it. So he sacked the original crew of people running it. And do you know who he brought in as the new chief? You'll never guess who he brought in as new chief of it.
I don't know who.
Steve Bannon.
No.
Yeah.
I would never have guessed Steve Bannon. I really would not have guessed Steve Bannon. Go on.
Yes, yeah. So Steve Bannon was at the time he was some sort of somehow something to do with the financing of the project. He was working in banking or something to do with it. And so Ed Bass put him in charge, and everybody immediately hated him. The first mission had finished in sort of semi-failure because all these things had gone wrong. They started the second mission, bringing Steve Bannon, and because everyone was so worried about Steve Bannon, what a horrible person he was, the original crew came back to protest about him to the point where they actually sabotaged the biosphere. They wanted to go in to warn the crew that Steve Bannon was in charge, so they broke in and so ruined that experiment as well.
Jeez, I had no idea.
So the whole thing was an absolute
Horlicks.
Yeah,
from beginning to end. Yeah.
So Steve Bannon left after 2 years, and the company got sued because of his abusive behaviour. Some of the bionauts, as they were called, a couple of them won $600,000 in damages for the treatment they received from Bannon. Afterwards, loads of people said this was clearly going to be a disaster from the start because it wasn't a scientific project. This John P. Allen fellow was a scientist, but almost none of the other people involved were really proper scientists. And one person described it as New Age drivel masquerading as science. And then another person said the group that built, conceived, and directs the Biosphere Project is not a group of high-tech researchers on the cutting edge of science, but a clique of recycled theatre performers that evolved out of an authoritarian and decidedly non-scientific personality cult. Yeah. So it sounds like they'd make a great film out of it, I think.
100%. I would read that book or watch that film. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's incredible.
So yeah, after that, they then they sold it on. They sold it on to Columbia University, who realised that the whole idea of having it completely sealed is a non-starter because it just doesn't seem to work, because you just always need to inject oxygen into it or release carbon dioxide from it. So they changed it. They've converted it into a climate change research thing where they could deliberately change the levels of carbon dioxide to see what effects it had, so they can work out what happens with climate change. And actually, that was really useful because they were the ones that discovered that too much carbon dioxide makes the seas become acidic, which then poisons coral reefs. And that's how they discovered that, doing that.
That's really interesting.
And then they sold it to the University of Arizona in 2007, and it's still running. They're still using it, and they just do mini projects in it now. Like they just use the different segments to do different things. So at the moment they're studying a thing on how volcanic rock turns into soil, and then they've got another thing on how to grow veg on the moon as well, and another thing on vertical farming. So yeah, it's still being used, not for its intended purpose, but it's better than what could have happened, because there was one point when they were just going to sell it to developers who were going to knock it down and build a shopping centre on it. So at least it's escaped that. But Mark, I would say one of its biggest legacies is the 1996 comedy film Biodome.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Biodome?
Russ, from your lips to God's ears. No, I haven't. I'm obviously completely aware of it because I put it down in my notes because that's what I remember. I think I've seen the trailer, but I've never seen the film. It's Pauly Shore, right?
Yes. Well, I've never seen the film either, but I have got the trailer, which I thought I'd play now.
Oh, fabulous, because I've not seen this since it came out. Go on then. It's going to be great, isn't it? It's going to be mint.
It really does look like... It looks like it would sweep the board at the Oscars.
The Biodome, a pure, self-contained environment where 5 scientists are about to be sealed off from every conceivable form of contamination, except one.
Well, check out that mall, man.
Our dream is finally at hand.
What kind of mall is this?
Get them out of here!
The doors are sealed for 1 year. We're stuck here.
That's right.
12 months?
Yes.
52 weeks.
Yes.
385 days?
Now, the whole world is watching as Bud and Doyle are separated from their loved ones. Learn about endangered species.
They're the rarest Lepidoptera in the world.
Experience nature firsthand. And become world-renowned protectors of the planet.
Purple sticky punch, or hemp, is an excellent source of photosynthesis.
Just because we're stuck in a bubble doesn't mean we can't cause any trouble.
On 3,
Pauly Shore and Stephen Baldwin
Trick or treat!
are doing whatever it takes
I feel like a duck-billed platypus.
to put the mental back in environmental.
Well, could you at least make it taste like chicken? Otherwise, I'm gonna shrivel up like a supermodel. I am so fat. Nobody likes me. People didn't like me in high school.
Biodome.
Iron Man does whatever and I can.
Hold it. That's Spider-Man.
Come on, what do you think? You're some rocket scientist?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's good, isn't it? You getting straight on the streamer trying to find that, Mark, to watch?
Thank God it's on Amazon MGM Studios official channel, so that must be on my Prime subscription, right? God, that looks awful. That actually looks worse than I imagine remembering it being.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody, if everybody's looking back on the 90s with rose-tinted spectacles, just watch that trailer.
Show 'em that?
Yeah.
The weird thing is like, I can't believe it's as late as 96 that film was released. Like, it looks like it's 90 or 91.
Yeah, yeah.
God, it's awful. That's absolutely wretched.
It's like somebody's watched Bill and Ted, but tried to make the most witless version of it.
It looks so pathetically lazy.
But amazing that Kylie Minogue is in it as well. I don't know if you noticed.
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
Is she in it?
Yeah, the red-headed bionauts who's standing around in the
Kylie
background.
Minogue?
It's Kylie Minogue, yeah.
I had no idea. I didn't spot her at all.
Quite interestingly, though, Mark, it is one of only 11 films on Metacritic, the review aggregator. There are only 11 films to get the minimum rating of 1 out of 100 on Metacritic, and it is one of them.
That's incredible. That's entirely believable. That's incredible. Oh, one of only 11. But I don't suppose you have the full list.
No, I don't know. Oh. It has a stellar 4% on Rotten Tomatoes, though, so it's a bit more generous. It does also feature the first ever screen appearance of Tenacious D, apparently.
Oh.
So that's interesting.
That's something.
Yeah, their career bookended, isn't it? Start off in Biodome, finish off insulting Donald Trump on stage in Australia.
Something tells me that's not the end of Tenacious D.
No.
Yeah, I suspect they'll be. But once, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
The only other fact, and I just want to squeeze this in because I can't think of any other situation where this would be pertinent.
Yeah.
The main scientist in that is obviously played by William Atherton, best known as Walter Peck from Ghostbusters, or the slimy journalist from Die Hard, whose name I can't remember what is in Die Hard.
No.
But, top fact, Mark, did you know that he's in the film The Great Gatsby? And in the film The Great Gatsby, he sings the song What'll I Do, which is the theme tune to Birds of a Feather. And for the first series of Birds of a Feather, obviously in Birds of a Feather they have Pauline Quirk and what's the name, Robson singing it.
Yeah.
In the first series, they didn't have them singing it. They just used that version. So William Atherton used to sing the theme tune to Birds of a Feather. I bet he doesn't even know that.
He doesn't even know that. No, it's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah, but anything else, Mark?
I have to say that is genuinely. I knew it was a failure, but I assumed it was a scientific failure, not like a kind of a moral failure. That's astonishing. Not Biodome. I'm talking by the biosphere here.
I mean, Biodome it could be counted as a moral failure as well, really. Somebody should have stopped it. Somebody should have stepped in and stopped that from happening.
A 3-day race in the Swiss Alps is a true test for small electric cars. 250 kilometres of winding roads, with some of the passes well over 2,000 metres high. But the real challenge is that these cars are solar-powered. The owners have solar panels at home to recharge their batteries rather than using mains electricity. It's an alternative that's gaining ground in Switzerland. They're already world leaders in the number of solar plants feeding into the national grid. These panels, stretching along the motorway, produce enough electricity for 30 houses. It's part of a national change in energy policy. Last year, the Swiss voted for a nuclear freeze. That means no more power stations to be built until the year 2000, and also to limit the use of fossil fuels. So alternative sources of energy must now be found. And an interesting experiment is underway here, in the alpine village of Burgoon. This summer, the villagers voted unanimously to become self-sufficient in their energy needs. Their first task will be to reduce consumption by installing various energy-saving measures. Then they plan a series of projects to generate power. Up on the rooftops, they'll decide which ones should be fitted with solar panels. Up here in the mountains, there's another source of renewable energy, the wind. And what they plan to do is to put a couple of medium-sized turbines around this area. And to get the electricity back down to the village, well, that's no problem. They'll use the electric cables that are already here for the ski lift. The village sawmill already has a project that's underway. Burning waste wood shavings provides hot water for a hotel, the school, and a dozen houses. Burgoon's water supply can also be used to produce electricity. The source is about 500 meters up in the mountains. Now, if that amount of water were allowed to rush freely down to the village, the pressure would burst the water pipes. At the moment, they reduce the pressure by siphoning off some of the water at various points down the mountain. The plan now is to replace these siphons with a small hydroelectric station. Burgoon will still remain linked to the national grid. If the villagers can reduce their demand for electricity by 30%, they should be able to generate enough power not to pay any electricity bills. By selling excess power to the grid in the summer and buying during the winter, over the year they expect to break even. Burgund's pursuit of alternative energy has been partly spurred on by another of Switzerland's concerns, pollution. And that's why solar-powered cars are being developed. No exhaust fumes polluting the mountain air, and they use a clean, renewable source of energy for recharging the batteries. At various stages during this race, the batteries do need topping up. Ironically, they use mains electricity. It's strictly metered as the amount each car gets is calculated on the size of the owner's solar panels at home. 3 of the entries have built-in solar panels, and as they've been designed for racing, it's hardly surprising that this one is the race winner. This has probably been one of the world's most difficult solar-powered car races, because it's more of a rally than just a straight race. But it's more than just a sporting event. This has been a public relations exercise to demonstrate that solar power has possibilities as an alternative source of energy. The argument against developing alternative energy has always been that it's too expensive. But with pressure here mounting to take into account environmental costs, the Swiss experiment in self-sufficiency will be worth watching.
Now, Mark, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I recently just got back from holiday in Italy and I drove there. So it required me having to drive through Switzerland to get to Italy. Switzerland's in the way, you might not know, but it is. Do you know how many solar-powered cars I saw on my trip through across the entire country?
I mean, I mean, if I know how accurate and consistent Tomorrow's World are at kind of ensuring that they correctly predict the future, Russ, I can't believe you must have run out of fingers within seconds of arriving through the border, right?
Funnily enough, 0. And actually, I was thinking while I was driving through there, this would be a terrible country for solar-powered cars because every 5 minutes or so, you go through an extremely long tunnel.
Yeah.
There was one tunnel that was 17 kilometres long that I was driving through. It takes ages to get through it.
That's a long.
The car would have just run out of juice halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really long tunnel, but the temperature kept going up and up and up the further in it you go in it. The temperature went up by about 15 degrees going through that tunnel.
That's spooky.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. Felt like I was going to the centre of the earth. Here we go. Carmen, Mark. This is Carmen's first ever segment on Tomorrow's World.
Is it really?
It is,
and
yes.
she starts
off
broadcasting from a small European town.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Talk about start as you mean to go on.
Well, that's made my day. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
How right we were to pick that as a TW trope.
Incredibly consistent, isn't it? It's got to be one of the most consistent tropes of them all, I think, Carmen in a small European town. What do you think it is? Do you think she's got like just a really good passport or something? Or she just lives in Vienna? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Well, no, Vienna's too big, Russ. She needs something smaller than that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We've got some beautiful Swiss countryside, some of the finest countryside in the world, I would say, the Swiss countryside.
It looks beautiful. I've never been lucky enough to be, but it does always look incredible. Like it looks, well, they say chocolate box, don't they? Like it does look unreal.
Yes, yeah. It's like a little fantasy land. They're completely ruining it with these absolutely terrible looking cars driving around the streets.
What's the phrase you use? Shit boxes? Flimsy shit boxes.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
It's like they personally offended you.
It looks like a children's soapbox derby more than they're so amateurish, some of them. I don't know anything against electric. I'm not one of these people that rails against electric cars, but people do these days, don't they? They think if you haven't got an engine in it. These people that rail against electric cars have probably never driven an electric car. If you drive an electric car, they're brilliant. But
I've been in one. Their acceleration is bizarrely quick.
Yeah. But I don't think you'd be able to do it with a solar-powered car. Certainly not one of these ones, because they're pretty flimsy.
Well, now that's the thing, because again, this is one of the weird things about, like, you watch this so many times, you make notes, and there are still bits you missed. It was only this time round, and you may have picked up on this, Russ. It's only this time round watching it again did I realise that of all the cars we see all these cars go by, only 3 of them actually have solar panels on. The rest are all plugged into the mains.
Yeah.
So what? And then it just made me think, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yeah, they seem to have got around that by saying, oh yeah, but they're plugged in the mains, but the power they got from the mains was generated by solar panels.
Yeah, a chitty record. Yeah. So they're just straight up electric cars.
Yeah.
What a Swiss! What a Swiss!
Oh, the worst of all Swiss is the Swiss.
Oh my god!
I did think it was a good idea to have solar panels along the side of the road.
Yes, I like that. Motorways.
Which makes total sense because you can't get NIMBYs complaining about them being ugly because the road's already there. So I'm surprised they don't do that more. And I, to be honest, I don't think I saw any of that in Switzerland when I was driving through.
That's a shame.
Yeah. I guess
it's such a rich nation, they really, really cannot be bothered to like prepare for the future or like just make things slightly better, do they? Can they? I don't know. They're so rich and they just, I don't know what they do, but then, I suppose that's what rich people can do is like not worry about anything.
But this is all, that is just sort of a framing device, I guess, really.
Yes.
For the actual thing, which is this project, this town in Switzerland.
Bergen, right?
Yes, it's called
Bergun, as she calls it, I think.
It's actually got 2 names. It's called, I think she uses both of them at some points in this. It's got the German name is Bergun, and then the Romansh name is Bravun or Bravun. I don't know. I'm not up on my Romansh pronunciations. Unusually, Mark. I'm not normally very good at this sort of thing.
You are a linguist, aren't you?
Yes. I looked it up on the map, and it's noticeably just down the road from a place called Crap Alve, which I liked.
Yeah.
It's only got a population of 480 people, so they don't really need...
Well, that is a small European town.
It really is, isn't it? So I guess they could... It's not a huge project to serve their power needs. They probably just need to plug in a couple of generators. They could probably do it with that. The idea is that they voted... Everyone in Switzerland's voting not to use nuclear power, and then they're voting not to use, dirty power. So they've got to think of other ways of doing it. I think it's quite interesting this Swiss idea of they hold referendums for everything, don't they? Referenda,
plebiscites. Yeah. Well, it's confederate. It's a confederation. The Swiss made up of the cantons, who their power is devolved. It's not devolved to them. They own the power, and then they pool it for national things, but that's about it really, and everything else then is referendum driven. How
do you think Britain would work if we had that? Do you think it would descend into chaos within days?
Do you know what? I think the rest of Britain would very quickly realise that every time they slagged London off was an error, was a mistake. That's what I believe, Russell. Yeah, that'll teach them. I was saying to someone I was away for the weekend. I was saying that one of my favorite things that came up recently was like somebody had made a mix of like, not every time, but like just like fun times where a character on Coronation Street was either saying they were going to London, or where somebody said like, oh no, they're in London, and the response is always London. Which is very amusing. Yeah, that's what I think's happened. That would, yeah, I think, I think it would be an error if people let London become powerful, separate to the national state. That's what I believe, Russ. What about you? What do you think will happen?
I think it'd be a fun experiment. I like the idea. I like the idea if you divide the regions up. I don't know what you'd probably. I don't know how much you divide up. Obviously, Cornwall you put on their own. Yorkshire you put on their own. And then probably there'd be a few the home counties you'd put all together.
Well, you say that, but like there are the different ridings of Yorkshire, all of whom hate each other. Will they be happy being pooled? and which Yorkshire lines do you use? Do you use like the Yorkshire lines from kind of the 16th century, or 1966 with the new Russell? This is a goddamn minefield.
And then just watch this as they like put really insane things to the vote. And like how many of them bring back? How quickly they all bring back hanging? And things like that.
Well, Hartlepool. Obviously, Hartlepool's the first to bring it back, right?
I think it's worth trying, Mark. I mean, things aren't going well at the moment. You might as well just, shake things up a bit.
Yeah, shaking things up, like babies, never fails, is it?
Yeah. Anyway, back to this. So they're thinking of different ways of making electricity, and it's quite good. They seem to be just putting everything to use there. They could put up some solar panels. They're going to use the wood from the sawmill. They're going to stick a couple of windmills up on a hill, and then send the electricity down the ski lift. Which I thought, is that dangerous? Are they just electrifying?
No. She did say it was the wires that powered the ski.
Oh, right. They're not just sending it down the cable.
Not the cables on which the ski lift operates.
Okay. I think I thought that's dangerously close to presenting from a gantry. Presenting from a ski lift is almost presenting from a gantry, isn't it? It's like a seated moving gantry.
If you like.
I couldn't find a huge. I was looking at Bergen or Brabham, trying to work out what had happened. The best I could do was go on Google Maps, turn it to satellite mode, and see what I could see.
Spying them.
Yeah, basically get the old spy in the sky to have a look. The sawmill's still there.
Yeah. I
didn't see very many solar panels. I saw a few solar panels on roofs.
Okay.
The place wasn't covered in them. I did notice that there is a nearby reservoir which now has a hydroelectric plant in it. Okay. And I looked that up, and it opened in 2020. And it's such a small hydroelectric plant, it can only supply 120 households. Tiny.
And it's what the population of 430, is that what you said?
Yeah. So it's contributing a quarter, and I guess the sawmill, and I couldn't.
Well, multiple people live in a household, so it might be half.
Yeah.
But it probably isn't everyone.
So I suppose you bung in the sawmill, a few.
The sawmill. I forgot about the sawmill.
A few solar panels and probably some windmills. I'm assuming that they have achieved it, Mark. I couldn't find any.
They might be washing their face with the. Yeah, okay.
I couldn't find any confirmation. Obviously, I was also looking at solar panel powered cars. This race ran from 1985 to 1993. The whole point was there had to be everything had to be got from solar panels, but originally it was only solar powered cars with solar panels on them. I think they got bored of the cars being so abysmal that they actually introduced this new sort of subsection where they could power themselves with solar powered energy. But then this ended in 1993 and got replaced by two much bigger ones. There's one called the World Solar Challenge, where they had to drive across the whole of Australia using solar power. But that makes more sense, probably a little easier, because Australia's famously quite sunny.
Quite sunny, yeah.
So that might have made it a bit easier. And there was also, obviously, there's the American solar channels as well, because they can't possibly just have a world one that they compete in, have to have their own one. And there's also the Formula Sun Grand Prix, which is the qualifying thing for the...
Oh, I quite like the sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just brought that in because of the pun, really.
That's good, yeah.
But interestingly, continuously, or almost constantly, these things are won by teams from the Netherlands. Specifically, it's a tech university in Eindhoven is always winning it. I don't know why the Netherlands is so... I mean, obviously the Netherlands is quite good at green power, but also it's not exactly the sunniest place in the world. So I don't know why they've got this sort of proficiency at being good at solar powered cars. But I thought I'd show you what their... So one of their winning cars is that freakish looking thing there. But then a load of the scientists who put that together, engineers and whatever, put that together, they managed to turn that into the car below it, which they brought to the market. So that car there, which I think looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Looks
Lightyear 1.
Looks a bit,
does look pretty
cool.
A little
bit Porsche, sort of like that. So that's all.
Yeah.
So the whole bonnet and roof is all solar panels, and so you can plug it in as well. But the idea is that those solar panels are passively recharging the battery at all times. And even if you don't plug your car in, if you just leave it out on a sunny day, it will gain 70 kilometres worth of range in a day just sitting in the sun. So the idea is that you could go for months without recharging. If you're just like, presume most people don't drive.
Popping up in the shops every couple of days.
You're hardly ever going to have to recharge the thing.
The school run.
So they brought it to market, and they were selling it for €250,000.
It's a lot of money. And
the company, and they were building it at a rate of one a week, and the company lasted 3 weeks before it went bankrupt.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a shame. They've still got the that solar panel technology, which they're still trying to flog. They reckon it's quite a useful thing for, could be used for all sorts of purposes. The idea
it's a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, just like on the roof. I don't know. Yeah, it just seems like it's missed opportunity, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, you could cover anything in those things. Any I always think that, like any surface. Why aren't we just covering all surfaces with solar panels? That we can. It just seems like a really easy win. Maybe we will at some point.
It's one of those things where, like, if you slightly nationalised it as well, like the cost of it would just drop through the floor.
Yeah.
If you were able to scale up at that level.
Yeah. You goddamn communist.
Goddamn communist. Well, no, Russ, no, because communists actually, they would do it, wouldn't? No, anyway, yeah. Goddamn capitalists.
No, I'm calling you a goddamn communist.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing,
I'm more of a statist.
The small European town, going back to that, I've just noticed something I forgot to mention. Berun. In 2017, they instituted a ban on taking photographs of the place and would instigate a 5 franc fine for taking a photograph of the place. And it was because it was actually a thinly veiled marketing campaign. The idea was that the place is so beautiful that it's dangerous to take photographs of the place and share it on social media because it will make other people on the internet feel depressed at the sight of it because it's too beautiful.
All right, fair play. That's fun. That's fun.
But I suppose that's the sort of thing. If you can make up your own laws, you could just bring in bonkers things like that just for fun.
Although we can rely on the sun to keep shining, you can't say the same about light bulbs. Sooner or later, they blow. The everlasting light bulb has still not arrived, but here's one that you might at least bequeath to your grandchildren. This new lamp should survive 60 years of normal use because it has no filament or electrodes inside, no components to age and eventually fail. It works in a completely different way to normal bulbs, using a principle first discovered by Sir Michael Faraday, whose 200th birthday is being celebrated this week. He showed how electrical energy passing through a coil can be transferred to a second coil, even though it isn't touching, if the current is made to change quickly. Now watch the effect on the second coil. The same thing happens if you replace that second coil with a bulb of vapour, like this ordinary fluorescent tube. The vapour molecules pick up the electrical energy from a coil. In this case, it's an upright coil. So let's turn the lights down now, and we'll see, I hope, the phosphor coating on the inside of the glass, giving off light. In the new bulb, they're combined. The electric coil and the bulb of vapour are arranged so that the bulb surrounds the coil. The trick behind getting the bulb to work has been to make the electric current in the coil change fast enough to get enough energy into the vapour bulb. And this box of electronics changes household electricity from 50 cycles a second to 2.5 million cycles a second. It's these electronics which at the moment limit the life of the electric bulb to only 60 years. Now, the bulb is supposed to work out cheaper over its long lifetime, but it's expensive to start off with. So when it first appears early next year, it's likely to be used wherever replacing a light bulb is particularly difficult. In oil rigs, in inaccessible tunnels, on high dome ceilings, or anywhere where it takes more than the proverbial number of people to change a light bulb.
Favourite light bulb, Mark?
I don't know if I have one, Russ.
Really?
Sorry. Yeah, you?
I think I'm a big fan of the old fashioned. They're kind of, what shape would it be? It's kind of like if you cut the bottom off of if you've got a Calippo and cut the bottom off of a Calippo.
Yeah.
That shape. You can get light bulbs like that. I've got one downstairs. You can get light bulbs that are that shape. I quite like them.
Oh, I don't think I know one of those ones. Like a kind of a weird spherical pyramid thing. Like.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me see if I can find one. I'll show you.
Oh yeah, I do. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. And to be fair, I do like that kind of. I know some people know them as like Edison bulbs with the filament showing. Yeah, they're very good. We have a couple like that. It's very nice. Yeah. I suppose I was thinking not particular when you said favorite light bulb. I was then trying to think like, well, what's like not just like a style of light bulb or a purchasable thing, but like a specific individual light bulb, which is why I kind of drew a blank.
Yeah, I hate fluorescent tubes though.
Ugh.
It's one of the many reasons why I never go into the office is because I don't like offices because they're always lit by fluorescent tubes. If offices were lit with mood lighting, I'd probably be more likely to go into them. But
for me, the tone of a light is more important than the shape of the bulb. And that when you walk past someone's house and it's just a cold blue light.
They've got the big light on as well, rather than lamps.
Yeah, I'm
psychopaths, absolute psychopath. Anybody has the big light on while they're just sitting about in their house doing their business is a psychopath. That's what I'm saying.
Absolute, yeah, a dangerous society. That's nature's warning, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's something the Dutch are very good at is lighting. Actually, they've always got beautifully lit houses. Even their streets are very nice and quite low lighting. And people moan about, people go, oh, you need bright lighting, otherwise you get mugged. Not true at all, Mark. Nonsense.
Yeah.
So Judith here is demonstrating a new type of light bulb, which I think all it is, because I actually couldn't find this specific. I couldn't work out whether this is the bulb or whether this is just a demonstration model of the bulb.
It's difficult to say, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But what it appears to be is that it's a fluorescent tube that's been turned into a bulb shape. So it works on the principle of a fluorescent tube, which she kind of explains to us, and ties into the fact that it's Michael Faraday's birthday. So the idea is you lower the bulb over the electromagnetic thing that's producing the charge, and that just makes the bulb light up. I could not find this type of bulb anywhere, so I didn't know. I couldn't really work out whether actually it's real or whether it's just a model or whether they ever made one or anything. It's I mean, you can get obviously light bulbs. You can get light bulbs that are fluorescent tubes, because that's what those. We went through a phase of having them. So once they've started to phase out your standard incandescent light bulb, they started doing the ones that were like two fluorescent tubes in
yes.
I think there was one point where they were just giving them away. I remember there was one point where the electrical companies were just giving them away because it was some sort of way of their environmental responsibilities. Like if they gave away a certain amount of them, then that meant they'd fulfilled their environmental responsibilities. But you don't get those anymore because they've got mercury in them, Mark. That they work by using mercury vapor.
That's fun.
So it's not enough to poison people, but enough that if everyone's chucking them in their bin, then you're going to get landfill full of mercury. So the EU banned them in 2021, and the US hasn't banned them, but all of their companies just stopped making them because LED bulbs exist, Mark. So there's no LED bulbs are much better in every possible way. So a regular light bulb old-fashioned light bulb lasts 1,000 hours. One of these fluorescent light bulbs will last 8,000 hours. An LED light bulb will last 25,000 hours, Mark. And that brings me to something I wanted to talk about, which is the fact that light bulbs only last 1,000 hours. Do you know this whole story about light bulbs?
No, I don't know. Tell me. I might do, but...
The Phoebus cartel, they invented the concept of planned obsolescence. So in 1925, Osram, the German light bulb, the head of Osram, decided that they looked at the sort of sales figures and saw that they were falling of their light bulbs, because obviously there was a big boom in light bulbs once electric light come about. Everyone was buying light bulbs left, right, and centre, so they were making loads of money. But then once everybody bought all their light bulbs, obviously inevitably the sales were falling away. So Osram phoned up Philips and General Electric and all that, and they had a big meeting in Geneva, and they decided that in order to maintain their profits, they would all agree to artificially shorten the lifespan of their light bulbs to 1,000 hours. And at that point, light bulbs were lasting up to 2,500 hours, just regular bog standard light bulbs. So they actually had to get their engineers working hard on it to work out how to make their light bulbs shitter. And they all got together and did this and agreed to do this. And to the point where they had a testing station in Switzerland, and all of the companies had to send samples of their light bulbs to the testing station, and they test them to make sure that their light bulbs weren't lasting too long. And
this sounds illegal.
If they lasted too long, they would get they get fined as part of the cartel. Yeah, and they managed to almost completely get away with this. They claim they were making claims that we have to shorten the lifespan of these things because it makes them more efficient and brighter. And it was all complete bollocks. It was purely profit driven. Eventually, the American government looked into it and they decided it was really a cartel that was controlling prices. But luckily for them, the Second World War came along and basically because the cartel was obviously made up of companies from opposite sides of the war. It broke up the cartel. But they never stopped. I
was about to say, they didn't change their tack.
No, they never stopped following the 1,000-hour rule. So even when they didn't need to do it, they just continued doing the 1,000-hour rule. So light bulbs never, could have lasted for longer and never did because of this absolutely heinous bit of market controlling. And they're credited with inventing the whole concept of planned obsolescence, which I would say, do you reckon the biggest culprits for that these days are printer manufacturers? How do printer manufacturers get away with what they do? They have the most sharp practices of any consumable good, surely.
Actually, the two things I've heard about recently is the idea now that you can buy. Well, some companies you have to buy a subscription to their ink, and then the other one is that you can't the container is proprietorial. So if you try and use a non-official one, it'll block you from printing.
Yeah.
Go F yourself.
I've seen ones where there's ink in the cartridge, but because you haven't paid the subscription, it won't release the ink. It's in the cartridge in your house, in your printer.
I feel like there was also one where, like I said, the cartridge ran out. So the guy opened up the printer and revealed that half the ink was in the bottom of the printer in this foam pad.
It's weird how there's some industries just become renowned for just treating their customers like absolute crap. And they just all do it. The other one that always springs to mind is car rental. All car rental companies are scumbags and try and rip off their customers. It's weird, isn't it? Whereas, other ones are always trying to be nice to customers. I wonder why it is. Anyway, but there have been some light bulbs that have bucked the trends, and it's normally the case that if you don't turn a light bulb off, because the reason the light bulb blows is when you turn it on, it heats up, the filament heats up, and then when you turn it off, it cools down, and that causes stress fractures, micro fractures in the filament, eventually making it blow. So if you leave a light bulb turned on, it can last a lot longer, especially if it's was made before this cartel came along. So the oldest light bulb is called the Centennial Light. It was first switched on in 1901, Mark, and it's still on. And if you look at the bottom of the document, you can see a photograph of it there.
Oh, is that it?
That is it. It's hanging up in a fire station in California somewhere.
Gosh.
It was originally 60 watt. It's now only 4 watts. So they're really trying to, keep it burning.
Eke it out.
Yeah, eke it out. Yeah.
But I suppose when your country's that young, you got to make your own history, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like I said, they phased out those old ones. They brought in what was called the CFL, or compact fluorescent lamp, which is basically a fluorescent tube but twisted or bent into the shape of a light bulb. And that is the closest thing to the thing Judith's got here.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the same.
No, because when I originally saw this, it did feel like, it was just a bulb-shaped fluorescent light.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, she does point out that its long-lasting properties does mean it would be perfect for being used in oil rigs. I don't know if you noticed
She does say that. Jot that down in your copybook.
That's good though, because we always mentioned that in the 90s they stopped having oil rig features. So it's nice that they're just mentioning oil rigs just to allow us to.
That's true. To be fair, this is barely just the 90s though. So.
Yeah.
I think it's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's pick up the pace.
Tomorrow, a new computer will be unveiled which could put interpreters out of a job. It translates spoken English into spoken, you guessed it, Japanese. Until now, for a computer to understand more than one voice, you had to say the words separately. The new system hears a whole sentence, breaks it up into words and converts them into a code representing what the sentence means, and then translates the code into the other language.
To go to a tourist attraction.
It interpreted Jason's speech correctly, didn't it?
I will go sightseeing today.
Admittedly, its conversation is limited. It can only talk about guided tours. The problem is that language often contains double meanings. So if you ask for a holiday on sunny Bali, you might end up in a field of barley. unless the computer already knows the context of the question. But for all its limitations, it is a breakthrough. For the first time, a computer can understand natural speech, whoever's talking.
Second time in the chair, Mark. It's
Doesn't get better.
Interestingly, we've had a Japanese translator.
We have.
Before. We had McCann.
Mm-hmm.
Almost exactly a year before this, in a program, the episode that seemed so much more old-fashioned compared to this one, even though it was actually only a year before. And McCann actually travelled to Japan, got a bit confused about the local language, and found out about how they were using sort of primitive early machine learning to work out how to translate from Japanese to English and back. I feel like this must be just as kind of a development of that. It seems to be very much along the same lines. From what small amount of info we can gather from this small segment, it seems to be a pretty similar thing, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's just like a more flashy sort of presentation of of the same thing.
It's got a better UX or UI, right?
Yeah,
that's it. But the guts are still the same.
Yeah, I know you had an issue with Kate's example
of double meaning.
Yeah.
Yes. Because she used the example of barley and barley, and that is not an example of a word with a double meaning. Duck is a word with a double meaning. It can mean the animal, or it can mean kind of, having to kind of lower yourself. Or saw is something you cut wood, or it is the past tense of seeing something. Flat describes something that is not lumpy, or it can be, in an idiomatic sense, it could be, a small one-floor habitation, often shared. These are double meanings. Hers isn't even... Her words don't even rhyme. They're not a homonym. I get her point, and she's right. Context is key, but it really annoyed me that she did not give an example of a double meaning. Yeah, it really annoyed me. And actually, I'd forgotten it until I started watching this, and it really annoyed me again. Because actually, her example is really bad.
Yeah, and it also only works in particular accent, doesn't it?
Yeah,
an American wouldn't pronounce barley and barley the same, would they?
Yeah, they do not.
Right.
So, because the thing is, like, a homonym would be a good example of a confusing thing that only that context ensures that you understand the meaning. But she doesn't give a homonym, and she doesn't give a genuine word that has a double meaning, which is like weird. Like, it's really odd. It's odd that kind of passed the sniff test. I don't know. I don't. I'm confused.
Well, I freeze-framed the image and found out that the system they're using is the NEC automatic interpretation system. It says it up on that screen that they've got.
The big projection.
NEC is the Nippon Electronic Company, Mark. Do you know that?
Yeah.
And I didn't, once again, as I said, it's another one of these really ancient companies. Well, ancient. But, yeah, it started in 1899. Started off as a phone company, weirdly, even though it was called Electric Company. I think the most interesting thing, that picture of that building that I've put down there, Mark.
Yeah.
That's their headquarters, the NEC Super Tower.
That's an interesting choice of design, isn't it?
Isn't it? I mean...
Yeah.
What are they trying to suggest there? Yeah, feel free to Google the NEC Super Tower at home if you want to see what we're looking at there.
That they are a company who stands proud.
Is that the most phallic building in Japan?
Well, I mean, it's certainly the most phallic building I've seen for quite some time, Russ. I mean, there are buildings that are probably deliberately shaped to look like cock and balls that are less phallic than the NEC Super Tower.
But, yeah, it turns out they, as well as being Japan's leading seller of PCs since the 80s, still are, they also were the forefront of language translation. Their first speech translator was demonstrated back in 1983. I can imagine that was absolutely appalling back in 1983.
Yeah.
And they were the first people to put it in a phone as well in 2009. One of their phones had a speech translator in it. But obviously, yeah, phone, Google Translate, Mark. That's what we've got now, haven't we? We've got Google Translate.
Yeah.
Do you know how many languages Google Translate currently covers?
Oh, I don't know. It feels whenever I have to scroll through it definitely gets longer and longer. I don't know, about 100 or something like that?
243.
There you go. That's not bad.
They added 110 this year.
Gosh.
And that's because they can now get AI stuff to obviously working better. They can get it to learn the languages quicker.
Yeah.
So they've added this year they added Tok Pisin, Bashkir, Chechen, Ossetian, Crimean, and Tatar.
It's amazing.
Yeah. That's it, really, Mark. Short and sweet.
Nice. Let's move on.
You ready to be depressed?
Oh, what's next? Oh, Jesus.
I don't know what it's like to feel normal and happy. I can smile, but it's always hurt with it.
12 years ago I was told not to have any more children, and if it wasn't for these up here I wouldn't have any more. That would be it.
Kip Ross basically is the man who makes this place run, and he is an eccentric genius.
Nature is extremely cruel in postnatal life and also in prenatal life. We get a lot of illnesses after birth, and if we were not to treat them, a lot of us would be dead. The same is true for fetuses.
This is one of Kypros Nikolaidis' tiny patients, seen as they all are using ultrasound. Paula Guberman's fetus has an uncommon condition, so her own hospital sent her here for treatment.
Did they give you the results from the blood test?
Yeah, last week.
Already. Great. There's a tummy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a small opening, and you can see something coming through it. Can you see just there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just there.
Yeah.
The baby's intestines are floating outside its body.
And you have met Evelyn Dykes, our surgeon. Yeah. So what we will do now is...
Evelyn Dykes is the surgeon who will operate on the baby when it's born in 2 or 3 weeks. She's worried that the baby's stomach doesn't look big enough to take its bloated intestines.
Very occasionally, we may have to use a special patch which enlarges the baby's tummy for a short period of time, and then over a period of a few days, we will gradually put it all back inside.
But it's clear to you exactly what the problem is, what the worries are.
Kypros's next patient is unique. Susan Robertson has lost 3 babies already due to a rare blood condition. She's now the first woman to allow a 3-month-old fetus to have drugs injected into its stomach to prevent it bleeding to death.
At first, we thought, no, it's too much, too traumatic, with it being so risky. But then I thought, no, it's my last shot. I can't say no. So we had more discussions, and I got my own way. And just really, I've got to exhaust all avenues before giving up.
You can see a rim of fluid around the baby's tummy now. Can you see that black space?
The injection has gone according to plan, but the drug doesn't seem to be working. 15 minutes into the operation, and the baby has started to bleed.
I'm now beginning to worry because the heartbeat seems to be getting slower and weaker.
If he's going to stop this dangerous bleeding, Kypros has to inject clotting cells directly into the baby's bloodstream, and that means getting a needle into the tiny umbilical cord.
Until today, the umbilical cord was actually smaller than the tip of the needle. So it would have been impossible for me to give a blood transfusion. But I think that today, although it is risky, I could just about manage the transfusion. It's going in well. Can you see the cord?
Yeah, got a little pulse.
Yes. It's going well.
We'll watch that little stop.
Baby's heart now.
Picked up
much
now.
stronger.
so things are looking better, at least for now.
We have done 2 relatively complex procedures on Susan today, and there is a risk that during the course of the next few days, she will miscarry.
So yeah, it'd be nice to get to next Friday and make sure that everything's still all right, wouldn't it? I don't believe how long a week is.
We'll be returning to the clinic next week to find out and to follow what happens.
You're returning to the clinic next week, Mark. I bet you're absolutely chomping at the bit to see what happens next week, aren't you? What a second that was.
Look, I know neither of us particularly like the health pieces in this program, but this really is one of the most wretched that we've come across. For lots of reasons. I mean, one, it's about health, which, okay, we find slightly boring. But it's so... I had forgotten, when I first watched this, I had forgotten that this is the first episode of a new series.
Mm.
And so I assumed when I watched... Not assumed is the wrong word. When I watched this, it made sense us having missed an episode that kind of laid the groundwork for who the fuck these people are, why we're watching them, what they were planning and doing. So we were kind of, we were arriving in the middle of something, and there was episodes still to come. So obviously, remembering now that this is the first episode of a new series makes even less sense of this. I think we don't learn anything, literally in the sense that there are no chyrons saying the names of people, who they are, not where they are, but like why they're there. Like you'd often see like a name of someone, their age, what the issue is, who that doctor is, what his specialty is. We don't see his name either. She pronounces it, but we don't see it. And then there's something so disrespectful, I think, personally, about the way that they have shaped this to be like a soap opera. It's like, so we, not only do they not teach us anything, or are we in any way informed about what's happening and what this means about tomorrow's world, but they are deliberately withholding information that is emotionally driven, in this case, the success of an operation that may or may not lead to a miscarriage. And they go like, find out next week. Yeah, it's absolutely wretched.
You could have put doof, 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 doof.
Yeah. It's awful. It's actually one of the worst things we've ever seen. And I think it took a while for it to really land with me how appalling this is, I think.
Do you think? I think, obviously, we don't know because we've not seen all the episodes.
No.
But I think this may be the first ever Magdalene medical segment.
Oh, I wouldn't be shocked, Russ. Yeah. Is this is the bit that broke the mold, right?
Yeah, they've not realised, they've not come to the idea of using plinky plonky music yet. They've not quite or soft focus. They've not stretched that far. It's a lot more. It's a lot more bleak. It's actually a little bit too bleak. It's like there's a lot of.
It's very dry.
There's a lot of like quiet. It's a very weirdly quiet segment, and like a lot of like dead.
Well,
dead
these people
air.
are really hurting, but they are putting on such a brave face.
Yeah,
they're so stoic in their kind of talking head interviews, but they are really, really suffering, I'm sure, on an emotional level about the health of their unborn child. And they're just like casual phrases that are thrown around, like, the doctor is concerned that the stomach may not be big enough to take its bloated intestines, which is such a weird thing to kind of just have pushed out there with no context as to how significant a problem this is. Is this actually, are bloated intestines what this whole series of segments are about? I don't know. So what am I supposed to learn from this? It's not a warning. It's not like, oh, by the way, there's a 1 in 1,500 chance that your unborn baby might have bloated intestines.
Yeah.
But here's what we're doing about it. It's like, this is just pure soap, right? This is like Take a Break or something like that. My baby was born with bloated intestines. It's crass, weirdly, but it's dressed up so dryly and so kind of like, do you know what it is? It's like, it's, what's that phrase these Americans like? They're speaking out of two mouths. It's like they want this to be kind of really important. Because this would have been around the time of Talking Lives or something. There was that great BBC Two series where like they would give real people a camcorder to film their lives.
Yes.
And then they would edit it. And like they were really interesting. They were really powerful. So they've done that. They've seen that. They've rolled this out. But this is not Tomorrow's World, this segment. And it just makes me really uncomfortable.
Mm.
And like, I almost kind of want to skip ahead and find out what happens next. Not because I'm really eager to know, but because I feel guilty having kind of been roped into this. And that the only way to actually respect these people is to understand where their journey concluded.
Yeah.
For ill or for fair. otherwise, just kind of leaving it dragging there just feels, well, I mean, this could be filmed in the week before the worst thing that ever happened to them. And yet we get this kind of smiling goodbye from, I don't know. It's infuriating.
Imagine, like next week you tune in and Judith goes, unfortunately, Paula's baby's intestines continue to expand.
Yes.
And he exploded and took half the hospital with him.
Well, now that would be news. That would be burying the lead. But I don't know. It's just, it's actually genuinely really wretched. Do you remember the episode we saw where they gave a camcorder to the astronomer?
Yes, yeah.
I remember how bad that was.
Yeah, I think diary segments just it doesn't suit the program.
No, it was a diary segment.
I guess
no, it doesn't,
the 90s.
What are you learning?
The 90s was the absolute, heyday of video diaries, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose camcorders became small enough for that. You don't get them. Well, you don't need them anymore because everybody just films themselves voluntarily, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. You can make your own show and stick it on YouTube. Oh, this really pissed me off, this did, especially just watching it back again.
Imagine if they tried to make video diaries these days. It'd be perfectly recorded. Everybody would go, "Hey guys," every time they turn the thing on. Ring lights wouldn't work. Yes, obviously, I couldn't find any info on Paula Guberman or Susan Robertson, the two patients who were named. Yeah. But I found that King's College Hospital is the birthplace of Camilla. Did you know that, Mark?
Did not know that.
Yeah. But it also has the Harris Birthright Research Centre, which is where we are here in this segment. It's run by a charity, so it doesn't actually cost the NHS anything, but it sees 10,000 patients a year. So, they're doing good work there. They obviously save money by having one of the worst websites I've ever seen in my life. It was designed in 1994 and never touched.
Yeah.
But I was very interested to see that Professor Kypros Nicolaides, which is the main doctor on this, he still works there. He looks less like what's his name from Die Hard? Hans Booby. Who is he?
Ellis,
yes.
Ellis, yeah.
He looks less like Ellis from Die Hard now. If you look at the bottom,
I'm your white knight.
That's a picture of him below the NEC Super Tower there. That's a fairly recent photo of him. And next to him, that's a recent photo of the surgeon lady who was there, Evelyn Dykes. She's retired now. She's 81. He, however, is still working. He's only 71. But yeah, interestingly, I looked at the names of all the people that work in his little department. He's got about 8 people that work in his department, and almost all of them seem to have Greek names. I don't know. So I know he's just employing.
Oh yeah.
It's very much a job for the boys situation.
I suppose it's only one step from baby to nepo baby, right?
Yeah, but he is an absolute. He's top of the heap. Like he is the best gynecologist and obstetrician in the world. Basically, there's this thing. There's this thing called, I'd never heard of it before, called the H index, and it's this formula that you apply to work out how good a academic is, and it's a formula, and you work out how many times they've been cited in other people's work and how much importance that citation has in their work. And it's a complicated formula anyway. And you can work out for any academic who's had works published. For example, a normal professor would have an index of around 20. An outstanding scientist would have an index of 40. And then, like, if you go up really high. So you got the man who worked out that HIV causes AIDS is a man called Robert C. Gallo. His rating is 154. Old Kypros Nicolaides here has a rating of 185. He's absolutely has one of the highest H ratings of anybody. So yeah, he's an absolute,
Wouldn't it have been amazing if we learned any of this from this piece?
Yeah, he's authored over 1,500 articles, 300 books he's written. So yeah, complete overachiever. But yeah, we didn't find out any of that, did we?
No.
But I would say,
we didn't find out anything.
If I had a problem with my baby,
you go to him.
There's probably not much better you could go to. So fingers crossed for those ladies. They're in the safest hands they can be. And I presume, one would hope that this diary was actually on a time delay, so that it doesn't have incredibly depressing news next week or the week after.
I assumed it would. Well, but the thing is, like, you can imagine the arrogance of the production team saying, "Well, this is what really happened, so we should broadcast it."
Yeah, I mean, You certainly wouldn't have it as your last segment of the programme, would you?
The poor judgment involved in making this is the same kind of poor judgment that would not give a rat's ass if... I agree. I suspect it's relatively good news. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
But it's just cheap and lazy. It's really disappointing. It's really angered me. Next.
Now, this is a computer picture of the plans for the rather nifty new jet bomber I invented in the bath last night. Well, it could be anyway. At the press of a button, I could send it along the phone lines to Peking or Baghdad and get myself 10 years in Parkhurst for spying. The law on the subject, you see, is simple enough. Send details of military secrets to foreign powers and you're acting illegally. Now, let's imagine, and for obvious reasons it will have to be a case of imagining, that the picture on the screen is one that breaks not the official secrets, but the Obscene Publications Act. If I receive that on my computer, then I may be breaking the law, but then again, I may not. Now, in fact, I can get just access to just those sorts of pictures using any home computer, connected through the phone lines to one of the many bulletin board systems around the world. A bulletin board is a central computer where a few hundred notice boards are kept on all sorts of subjects, usually entirely innocently. Now, earlier I left a message on the medical notice board here, and the question was very simple: how do you find a good dentist? And someone who's come back, he's actually a dentist himself, there are a lot here. Qualifications don't mean much, and avoid large practices. Great advice. Over here, the food conference is looking to make the perfect curry, and someone has asked the secret of thick court sauces, and has been told the secret is to cook them absolutely thoroughly, and someone else has said, yes, I've come across that before, but the last time I cooked them thoroughly, all I got was a taste of burnt onions. So you see, there are notice boards on everything, from motorcycle maintenance to legal advice, which comes free. And it must be said, an awful lot on computers. Now, here is a notice board on about the best way to send pictures across that computer system. Now, the one I've sent, which I shall show you, here it is. The one I've sent is innocent enough, but some members have been sending pictures that, if they were actually published, would break the law. Now, we already have laws about what you can print and what you can send through the post, but the question is whether those laws also cover what you can receive over a phone line, especially if it comes from outside the UK. And all of this will be even more significant as the networks spread. One US-based system already has nearly 1 million members. Many scientists now rely on the networks to share ideas, and businesses will need them to keep in touch with customers and commercial partners. Another issue is whether the information held on these networks is private or public. Is it like a friendly chat between a group of mates in the King's Arms, or is it more like a public newsletter? Either way, should they be censored? And if they should, then who by? Now, there are 3 ways of dealing with this problem. Either we can let the companies running the systems monitor and censor all the messages, or we can do what some of our legislators are looking at the moment, open up the networks to policing by the authorities. Or we can just say that the right to private conversations between private individuals should carry over onto our computer systems. These are questions that people are only now starting to think about.
John Diamond, Mark. Not to be confused with Johnny Diamond, the BBC royal correspondent. You know that? There's also the BBC royal correspondent called Johnny Diamond. Spells his...
remember Johnny Diamond.
He's current. He's bald. He's bald with glasses. He spells his surname differently. He spells his surname with a Y. It did occur to me while I was watching that John Diamond is one of only 2 dead Tomorrow's World presenters. All of the other Tomorrow's World presenters are alive, apart from Raymondo and John Diamond.
And John Diamond.
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite incredible.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Poor old John Diamond, taken long before his time. Quite famously, I think.
I was about to say quite famously, yeah, very famously.
Yeah. Died of throat cancer.
Very publicly
in 2001.
Yeah.
But I mean, very deliberately publicly, because he wrote extensively about, what was happening to him. He was shortlisted for the Samuel Johnson Prize for his book, See Because Cowards Get Cancer Too. He was diagnosed with cancer in 1997 and wrote Times articles about it every week. And obviously,
I remember,
yeah. Seemingly an incredibly popular man in the world in the media throughout the 90s. It's sort of him, and he was obviously famously married to Nigella Lawson. They were something of a media power couple.
Yeah.
Famous for their sort of dinner parties, and obviously you can imagine Nigella doing all the cooking and John Diamond holding court there, which made it all the sadder that he'd lost his ability to speak because of the throat cancer. But apparently he was very sort of quick with the notepad. He was still sort of write stuff down and all that. I think he probably got this job because he was very big into. He was very big into his gadgets and technology and stuff. He's always like trying to get buying the new gadget, and he used to write a column for I think it was Computer Weekly, one of computer magazines. So I think they're sort of trying him out on this program. Well, they didn't last that long on it. It only lasted one series on Tomorrow's World. I'm not sure. I think maybe they realised they had too many presenters because they've got.
There's a lot. There is a
lot of presenters, isn't there? I think that this sometimes happens. They start a series with a load of presenters and realise they haven't got enough for them all to do. So they sort of prune them away. He's all right. Bear in mind, this is his first ever segment. He's
perfectly fine.
Seems to have a certain amount of personality. He completely messes up one of his lines.
Yep.
Chuckles to himself.
Yeah.
It's probably the last thing he wanted
confident.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the one thing he didn't want to happen, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's perfectly fine.
Apparently, I was reading his obituary in The Guardian, which was written by Jay Rayner. So presumably they must have been friends. One of his technology things was that he was always very late filing his copy. Once the ability to file copy over the internet came about, he would take advantage of the fact that his editors probably didn't know how modems and stuff worked. So if he had not finished his article, he would just write the first paragraph and then just send that and then just write a load of gibberish at the bottom. Yeah. And then just send that to them. And then when they go, oh, where's the rest of the article? We go, oh, the modem must have broken down. It must have gobbled it up. You have to give you a bit more time to write the rest of the article. So I thought that was good.
That's good.
Victoria Corrin, another one of the media lovey that he was friends with, she actually ended up writing a play based on his book. And do you know what the play was called?
Diamond Geezer by Victoria Corrin.
That's good, yeah. That was called A Lump in My Throat.
No.
But she recounted a time when his illness had reached the point where he couldn't eat solids anymore. So the only way he could only consume liquids, and he could only consume them by a syringe going down a tube straight into his stomach. But apparently at a party, he got the maitre d' to come over and take the plunger out of the syringe and fill it with champagne and then syringe the champagne directly to his stomach.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Yep.
Yeah. He became really sort of into anti-quackery. He even wrote a book about quackery because obviously when he got diagnosed, he got loads of quacks approaching him.
I have no doubt.
Snake oil and other preoccupations, it was called. So that gives him a big tick in my book. You know how much I hate the quacks.
Yeah.
But here he's talking. Obviously, this is pre-World Wide Web, just about, or certainly pre any sort of acknowledgement of the World Wide Web. So he's talking about bulletin boards, basically. The inventor of which died this week, Mark. I don't know if you noticed.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, the inventor of the bulletin board died about 3 days ago.
I was gobsmacked to see the inventor of tiramisu died about a month ago. Yeah. A dessert, I think most people assume was some kind of ancient.
Yeah. Because Italians act like it was some sort of truly traditional recipe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he's got these bulletin boards. He's kind of skirting around the issue, presumably because this is 7:30 or 7 o'clock on a weeknight.
Yeah.
So he just kind of just says it's something like images that you shouldn't be looking at, or like sort of like But presumably he's talking about the worst possible things you can get on the internet, isn't he? Is it?
He's beating around the bush for us, which is exactly what some of the people on these message boards are trying to do.
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of. But he's not really interested in that anyway. He's more interested in the concept of the legal element of it, isn't he? But he's kind of just asking questions rather than.
I did think this was really interesting, and to be fair, I'm in a slightly sour mood that has nothing to do with lots of things. So when I reading my notes, it's like, oh, I was so much more enthusiastic about this whole episode when I wrote these notes. But actually, I'm going back to what I remember, which is that it's not about the legality. I think it's more about the morality of the internet that he's asking questions about, or the philosophy of the internet. What does it mean? Where is the information? What does it mean when you're sending from one thing? Which I thought was really interesting. Like he really is asking questions that we're dealing with now, which I thought was really interesting. I do have some things that annoyed me slightly, which is he talks about at the press of a button I could send it along the phone lines to Peking or Baghdad. And I was just like, Beijing had not been called Peking for quite a long time. So that's a weird I felt that was a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
It's not like Calcutta or Bombay, which changed their names relatively recent, but, you know, even though they changed their names relatively recent, people do still manage to call them Mumbai and Kolkata. But yeah, that just, I don't know, that's slightly stuck in my craw. but the rest of it is really interesting. Like, it is about, because I think a lot of discourse at this time, especially when the World Wide Web came in, I think you're right about that. This is before that. So actually, it's not quite the internet as we know. But when the World Wide came in, when the 3W came in and it really took off, it was so often kind of passed in the light of this is just this. There is nothing. This cannot be a bad thing. This democratization of information has got to be a good thing. You know, the World Wide Web, the information superhighway. You know, now all of a sudden, everyone has access to all the information that they need. And I suppose actually, with hindsight, it wasn't just naive. It was a failure of imagination and a complete misselling of what the internet is, because the internet is us, and it's the good and the bad. And I know we discussed this in a previous episode, and we have discussed this many times, the two of us, over a drink, which is that for a long time, the way I always sum it up is for a long time, the one or two weird people in your town were very obvious and everyone knew who they were, and they possibly had mental health problems, but like you knew who the weird people were. And now, because every weird person in your town can log online and find an entirely receptive audience of people who will slap them on the back and tell them they're right, they have become, and by weird, I don't mean like, you know, I mean like had strange ideas and kind of, you know, were clearly maladjusted in terms of how they understood society. Not like, you know, somebody who was a bit too close to their shopping trolley or whatever, you know, like now they have this entirely receptive audience who kind of say to them, no, you're 100% correct because I believe the same thing. And there is no kind of, we discussed this before, it's like one of the most powerful motivations on an individual in a society is the concept of shame. Is that idea that, you know, actually being wrong is a bad thing. And it is the feeling of shame that helps you understand the need to correct your behavior. And by correct your behavior, I don't mean that in some kind of authoritarian, fascistic way. I mean to learn to behave better around and about people, to respect people more. To respect, you know, and even if you don't agree with them, just to kind of respect them in the sense that you kind of just allow them get on with their life. It's interesting because we were looking at the messages, and you know, I know the one that you really like is when he goes on the dentist bulletin board, and there's somebody commenting that was it qualifications are overrated? Qualifications don't mean much.
Really? Sure.
I kind of feel they mean a lot.
At least dentistry qualifications must mean something. I don't think you want to go to an amateur dentist, do you?
No, I don't. And actually, I forgot to mention, like with the diary segments, that the one thing, that the only positive I took away from that was how much it reminded me of the pool from the Day to Day. And of course, the Day to Day also have illegal street dentists. But actually, what we were discussing is that this idea, this person commented on this message board, qualifications don't mean much, means that even in 1991. John Diamond has accidentally revealed to us the reality of the bottom half of the internet for the rest of all time.
People are already tired of experts.
Absolutely. They're already ill-informed people professing to be experts in something they probably know nothing about. Nailed it. Little did he know that actually the reality was happening on the screens in the background.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is a really interesting thing. Not necessarily because of what it was at the time, but because of, you know, to see something that's over 30 years old asking questions that we're dealing with and then secretly revealing the reality of the internet. It was there in public the whole time. We just never saw it because we were too busy, you know, yumping around the GeoCity sites of our childhood.
Yeah. And he is right. The legal system has adapted to the internet.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had this situation. Perfect example is recently the Hugh Edwards case is a great example. So originally, the Protection of the Children Act, 1978, specifically said that you're not allowed to take indecent photographs of children. But then, what is a photograph? So then, in 1994, they changed it to making an image in order to cover the fact that it could be on a computer. And then in 2008, they said that the image doesn't even need to be visible if the image is encoded in any way. So if it's, if it's stored on a disk or anything like that, then that still counts as an image, even though it's not visible. So then that means that you can catch people. They can't get out of it. But I looked at CPS guidance now, and so the concept of making an image includes opening an attachment, downloading an image from a website, putting it in a directory on a computer, a pop-up, or receiving an image via social media, even if unsolicited and even if part of a group. So it's actually, I was thinking that's quite powerful, isn't it? Because does that not mean that you could, if you had an enemy, could you not send them something illegal? And even if they're receiving it unwittingly, that still counts, doesn't it? So could that not be a way of, Putin attacking targets, like just start sending them illegal grot and then reporting them?
I suppose by the letter of the law, by what you said, yes, absolutely. But I suppose the point of that is to put the onus on the individual receiving it unsolicited to call the police and say somebody is forcing me to, forcing pop-ups on my computer full of, as you say, illegal grundle.
Yeah. Well, if only Hugh Edwards had read that particular CPS guidance, he might still be presenting the news.
Well, I think the problem was he read the messages from the guy offering pictures of difficult subjects and said, yes, please.
Well,
it didn't seem like he was concerned about the law.
He did look cool in those sunglasses outside court, though, didn't he?
He did look strangely, and that kind of stubble, like he did look pretty renegade, I must say. I did think that was a bit of poor PR in his part, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure his PR will ever be that great. I can't see him. I can't see him doing a Schofield and turning up on Channel 5 anytime soon.
I don't think any of us saw Schofield turning up on Channel 5 until he did. So who knows, Russ?
This is Mr. K.N. Rao. He's a full-time astrologer. In India, astrologers are believed. They're asked to predict everything. Auspicious days for business or for a marriage. And they can even be asked to predict one of the most devastating weather patterns on Earth, the cyclone.
I see the movement of planets. And what I find is southeastern India is going to be hit by a sea storm between 5th and 7th of October 1991.
Here on the east coast of India and further north in Bangladesh, cyclones are a major killer. The last one, still vivid in the memory, killed 50,000 people in Bangladesh. Cyclones are monstrously powerful, swirling vortices of air. They form out there in the warm waters of the Bay of Bengal as areas of intense low pressure, and they can travel up to 500 kilometers a day. If they hit the coast, everything that lies in their path is destroyed. Nothing can stop a cyclone, but with accurate forecasts and warnings that people believe, the damage they cause can be limited.
These fishermen go out for up to 2 days at a time. Meeting a cyclone could be a disaster, but equally, scares and false forecasts which stop them putting out to sea mean a loss of livelihood. While they would sometimes believe an astrologer, they didn't believe the weatherman, and getting them to take shelter when cyclones were forecast was a real problem, which is one reason why the Indian Meteorological Office developed one of the world's most sophisticated cyclone tracking and warning systems. It starts, like astrology, up in the heavens. India has its own meteorological and communications satellite. INSAT-1 can spot a cyclone up to 1,000 kilometers off the coast. Within seconds, the Met Office in New Delhi is on its track. If it moves to within 400 kilometers of the coast, it gets picked up by the network of cyclone radars positioned all around India. The Cyclone Warning Centre in Madras. It's here that the behaviour and idiosyncrasies of the cyclone are monitored, debated and charted. There's constant new information, and every half hour the latest satellite images come in from Delhi. These are combined with radar images from the ground stations, until finally the decision is taken. With just 24 hours notice, a warning will be broadcast.
It's here in the coastal villages that those warnings most need to be heard. Although general cyclone forecasts are broadcast on radio and television, what's also needed is a warning aimed specifically at the people most in danger. And it has to be broadcast by a completely reliable method, no matter how bad the weather. And so the weathermen look to INSAT-1 again, not to forecast this time, but to communicate. At the weather centre, the warning bulletin is recorded in the language of the villages the cyclone is likely to hit.
புயல் எச்சரிக்கை அறிக்கை எண் 28.
The code for the receivers just in those villages is entered into the transmitter and the warning sent. In a second, via the satellite, it will reach the village's most responsible citizens. The siren is supposed to be heard for about 1 kilometre, but it's up to the police to make sure that they get to the receiver to listen to the actual weather bulletin. That comes through 3 minutes later, and depending on what it says, they'll organise evacuation to the nearest shelter. In 1977, a cyclone hit this coast and killed 9,000 people. Another one in May 1990 killed 700. That reduction was largely because the cyclone was spotted 4 days in advance, tracked, and warnings got through to the people most at risk. And although the astrologer's prediction may or may not come true, the fact that the weathermen are tending to get their cyclone predictions right is making a huge difference to the people in this part of India who have to live in the cyclone's path.
Now, Mark, this seems laughably dated now that we know that tropical cyclones are caused by the Democrat Party.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. There's no such thing as climate control, but Democrats control the weather. Right?
Yes, yeah. I was going to say weirdly well timed, but I guess it's storm season every year, isn't it? So, I don't. Did they always used to talk about it as much as they do now? I don't know. I feel like there's more made of.
Oh, I don't know. I think there was only ever Hurricane Andrew, and that was it, right?
Yeah, it just seems like. I guess maybe there are more hurricanes and cyclones these days.
I think to be fair, Russ, I genuinely believe there are, and they are bigger.
Yeah. Although. I did look up what the biggest one was. The biggest ever tropical cyclone was Typhoon Tip in 1979.
Gosh.
And it had a sustained wind speed of 190 miles per hour.
That seems fast.
And was 1,380 miles across.
That seems big.
Caused $2 billion in damage. But luckily, it sort of went along the coast of Japan and then zoomed off into the Pacific.
Oh.
So only killed 99 people, which, considering its destructive force, is actually a bit of a lucky getaway, really.
That's incredible.
I also discovered in 1989 there was a Typhoon Gay, which just made me laugh.
Oh. This
segment here, Mark, you pointed out, well, it starts off with the astrologist K.N. Rao in his, I don't know where he is, in his home? I don't know, he's sitting on the floor somewhere.
Astrology hut?
His astrology hut.
Right.
And is it paying homage to Apocalypse Now with the ceiling fan?
Does seem
and the
like it, yeah.
But I'm surprised you're not laying there foaming at the mouth, Mark, because of the the sheer ferocity of the flashing images they present us with no warning.
It's incredible, right? It's genuinely incredible.
Yeah. I obviously immediately made me wonder, hang on a minute, they obviously warn when there's flashing images now.
They do. So when do they kick in and why?
Well,
yeah, I know. I'm smiling. Go on then.
I found out.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, it was a pot noodle advert. So
Really?
Yes, it's so obviously it's a thing called photosensitive epilepsy. It affects 1 in 4,000 people. And in 1993, Pot Noodle did an advert which caused seizures in 3 people. And I'm going to show you it now. Because some client souls upload. So let's find out if you have photosensitive epilepsy.
I'm excited to find out.
Let's find out if any of our listeners or viewers have photosensitive epilepsy, because I'm about to play it. Here we go.
Got your golden wonder pot ready? Got your tongue ready? At the end of this commercial break, we're going to ding-a-dang-ding our ding-dangs. Intense. What goes better with an intense snack than intense film? Eat this, watch this. Louis, kick it. stealing my pot. I'd wrestle them for it. Connie, let's hit the mat. If this isn't snacking at its most intense, the devil don't scuba dive. Stay hungry.
Looks like you haven't got it, Mark.
I think I'm safe.
I think you're safe.
I mean, I also remember those ads, so I did watch them at the time.
That one, that's the version that caused 3 seizures. They then obviously changed it slightly, so the flashing images were less intense. They made a later version with less intense flashing. After that, the ITC, the people that look after, sort of regulate these sorts of things, they went to a man called Professor Graham Harding, who invented a thing called the Harding Flash and Pattern Analyzer, which is a piece of software, and whatever television program, advert, whatever, has to be put through this software, and it analyzes the images, and there's a certain level of flashingness that it can't pass. And then, so everything has to go through that. And you can, even these days, there's a website, so you could upload something to it and it would tell you whether it would cause them or not. And they had to obviously use the very same test in Japan as well, because of the 1997 Pokemon shock incident. They absolutely thrashed us, though, because that episode of Pokemon managed to send 685 Japanese children to hospital.
We're just not trying.
No. Yeah, so we go through, and we've got K.N. Rao, who is a astrologer, and apparently, I found him on the internet. He's a reasonably famous astrologer in India. It's Hindu astrology, which is called Vedic astrology. I couldn't work out what the difference was. It still used the same constellations as us, so I'm not entirely sure what the difference is. But he, unbelievably, so there was a point where universities started to teach astrology as a course at universities in India.
Oh, in India.
In India. And then scientists got together and went, you can't teach this. This is absolute cobblers. So they stopped teaching it. And then they brought a court case, and he managed to convince the courts that astrology was real. And so to this day, they still teach astrology in Indian universities. And it's all down to this K.N. Rao fella. I did find a good quote regarding Indian astrologers. It said, in 2000, when several planets happened to be close to one another, astrologers predicted that there would be catastrophes, volcanic eruptions and tidal waves. This caused an entire seaside village in the Indian state of Gujarat to panic and abandon their houses. The predicted events did not occur, and the vacant houses were burgled.
Sorry. Obviously, that's not funny.
I like to think it was a load of astrologers that did burgling as well.
That's the first thought I had.
Like a Russell Grant with a swag bag and an eye mask.
With Mystic Meg on the lookout.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just a cyclone early warning system. I feel like old Howard has blagged a pretty sweet holiday. He's not doing it. He's always standing on a beach in his 3/4 length trousers. Just pointing at the sea. He's not got a great deal to. I hope he did other things while he was over there.
I sincerely hope in our future we see the other pieces he filmed. Otherwise, this is money for our rope, and I'm not happy. My parents paid the license fee, Russ.
Yeah, because I mean, he doesn't add anything to it, because it's basically what we're seeing is the actual Indian officials themselves giving us a nice little reconstruction of what would happen in the event of a cyclone.
Let's not beat around the bush yet. There's barely anything to this segment. The cyclones are serious, and they have put in place a serious system to, warn people.
The interesting thing was, I didn't realise they've got quite an extensive satellite network, the Indian government, which it was a project they started called INSAT, the Indian National Satellite System. So commissioned in 1983, and all the different INSAT satellites have a different function. So you've got the communication one, a broadcasting one, a search and rescue one, and a meteorology one. So this is one they're concerned with, is the meteorology one, obviously, which is INSAT 1C. They launched a total of 24 different INSATs, and there's 11 of them are still working. It's a really good system, and they do, like, the whole world does rely on the Indian Meteorological Department to track these storms, discover these storms, track them, and name them. They're one of only 6 weather people that are allowed to name storms, and it does work. As I think Howard mentioned at the end there, in 1977, the cyclone, the Andhra Pradesh cyclone. The government said it killed 10,000 people, but unofficial figures reckon it killed 50,000 people.
Jeez.
And then, obviously, this later cyclone, there was only a few hundred killed. So it's like, definitely works. I was interested to know whether because obviously in this, the warning system is just some bloke in a hut noting down something and making an announcement and things like that. And I thought, do they still do that? And apparently they still announce all the cyclones on TV and on the radio. But actually, they've now got the nationwide alarm system that mobile phones all have. And I thought, how many people have got a mobile phone in India, though? Turns out, basically everyone in India's got a mobile phone.
Everyone.
Especially in rural areas. Smartphone ownership in rural areas of India is over 90%.
Gosh.
Which I was very impressed by.
That's hugely impressive.
So next time a cyclone comes along, they just go, make your phone.
Yeah.
Which everyone in Britain actually had a shit fit about was it a couple of years ago when they tested that system in Britain? Don't you remember?
Beginning of last year, maybe? Yeah.
I
do remember.
Because they do it in the Netherlands every 6 months. Which scared the bejesus out of me when they did it when I first moved here. But yeah, I remember they did it once in Britain, and everybody said, "Oh no, it means that people hiding from rapists are going to get." And all this sort of stuff. But I think everyone survived.
Well, not people hiding from rapists, people hiding phones from abusers.
Oh, right, okay. I thought it was people hiding in cupboards.
God, you're obsessed with Anne Frank over there, aren't you?
And a final story in the news this week. What do sperm and traffic have in common? Well, they can both travel in straight lines and reach their destinations with no problem, or they can end up creeping along. But there's something else. Their mobility can now be judged by the same piece of equipment. This computer, developed to monitor traffic at junctions, has been adapted to assess the fertility of sperm. Video of sperm is analysed to see how fast and straight they're moving. Because it monitors the sperm continuously, scientists will also be able to check whether the head is rotating in the right way to penetrate an egg. That's one sign of healthy sperm. And by using the tracker, doctors hope to develop new treatments for infertility.
Did you know sperm had to... What was it she said about their heads had to rotate?
They rotate.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
No, I don't think I did.
So I guess have they got like little drills on the front? Is that what it is? They're drilling?
I don't know. She doesn't explain, Russ.
It's weird that we don't know this, because we were sperm at one point, weren't we?
We were. We all were.
Would it be a weird world if we all remembered being sperm?
Yes.
How do you think?
But also, we were also egg. Like, wouldn't it? So you'd have this kind of weird bifurcated memory where you were both sperm and egg at the same time.
Do you think, though, because we're men, we identify with the sperm more?
Yes, I do. Yes. They're like our little soldiers, right?
Yeah.
Is that the phrase people use? Yeah, no, yeah, I do, definitely, yeah.
So, yeah, do you reckon? So, yeah. So if souls exist, if you're a man, your soul is inside the sperm, and if you're a woman, your soul is inside the egg.
Sorry, explain this, Lee.
If souls exist, Mark.
Yeah, okay, if souls exist, right?
Then if you're a man, then your soul is inside the sperm, and then if you're a woman, your soul is inside the egg.
I see what you're saying, Russ. And I'm going to say yes, so we can move on. No, I get your point. Yeah, I mean, I've never thought of it that way.
Well, it's something to think about. It's not something I would cover on Tomorrow's World, I don't think.
Well, John Diamond did. He loved a bit of philosophical consideration, didn't he?
Well, yeah, I suppose the closer you get to the astral plane. Kate back in the chair again. I noticed that she pretends to make a note on a piece of paper at the beginning of this one, she's got some paper in her hand.
Yeah.
I think she's realised that it looks a bit. So she, I'll make it look like I'm doing something. So she makes a pretend note on her piece of paper.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, and it's the tiniest of tiny segments. I was surprised that I found this. It's called the Hobson Sperm Tracker, named after Professor Jeff Hobson from the University of Sheffield, who was the man who invented the traffic camera. Mm-hmm. And then another fella came along called Bill Holt from the Institute of Zoology, and they got together and they invented this and they sold it. Jeff Hobson's business actually sold the thing. I couldn't find out much about Jeff, but Bill Holt is still around. He's retired, but he's still sort of making contributions to the world of sperm studies. That's his
I bet he is the dirty boy.
And I found a little blurb from him, and he talks about what he's done in his life, and he mentions working in Australia, trying to solve the intractable problem of freezing wallaby, kangaroo, and koala sperm.
The intractable problem.
It is an intractable problem, isn't it? I mean, and then another time he went to Gran Canaria to study how the quality of paternal diet affects placental function and offspring survival in seahorses. The big thing about seahorses is, of course, that the males carry the babies.
They gestate the eggs, right?
Yes, yeah. But he claims that the Hobson sperm tracker has been used in many labs around the world. And yeah, if you Google it, you can see it mentioned in a lot of scientific papers. So it's a tick and a win, I'm saying.
All right, I'm pleased with that one.
Whatever next? Well, this actually. You just got off the plane, you want to get home and the bus is late. So, just in case, you're not going to believe what I've got in here. Wheels, petrol tank, engine. It is, of course, a luxury car. And to help to put it together, here's the designer, Mr. Kanemoto, and his assistant, Mr. Suzuki. Welcome, gentlemen, and please, off you go. Put it together for us, if you would. Packed into this case is a car capable of 20 miles an hour. Most of the parts just fold out and click in position. This is one of the most important things to do, is insert that metal bar between the two halves of the case. Otherwise, there's a very dangerous possibility of it turning back into a suitcase whilst you're on the move. It runs on a beast of a 33cc, air-cooled, single-cylinder, two-stroke petrol-driven engine, and it has all the essentials. It's got disc brakes, indicator lights, and of course it's got excellent all-round vision. And if it's luxuries you're after, there are optional extras. They've put a cassette player in here and the speakers around the front by the feet there. Wonderful. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks a lot. And this was actually for a design competition. I hope it won. Keeping an eye on the back tyre, hoping it doesn't fall off. Yes, you know, always first on Tomorrow's World. This is the fastest luggage ever built. Until the same time next week, 7:30 on Wednesdays, don't forget. Till then, good night.
Howard's little face as he drives around the studio there.
He looked genuinely happy, didn't he? Yeah. You can hardly blame him.
No, that looks like fun. How far through Heathrow Airport do you reckon you get on one of those before somebody told you you weren't allowed to do it?
Weren't it? Someone told you. Not very.
No, yeah, different times, isn't it? Mm.
Yeah, different times, Russ. I do feel like I saw this suitcase car a lot in the 90s.
Yeah, I think it appeared on TV.
This does feel like this might have been the first time it was on TV, though.
Could well have been.
Yeah.
The only other TV mention of it I found was it appeared on Oprah, but that was a couple of years after this, because it was built. It's actually a Mazda, Mark. They've
I didn't know that. Mr. Suzuki confused.
Yeah, they've peeled the Mazda sticker off of it.
Of course.
But yeah, a Mazda engineer called Yoshimi Kanemoto. And I've got a lovely picture of him at the bottom of the holding his brief, holding it there. Look at that.
He looks so happy.
Dude in the town there. It was an internal Mazda competition called Fantasy Yard to basically build a car out of an unusual object was the challenge. And this was the winner of the internal competition. And then they were so pleased with it, they took it round to lots of different car shows. So they took it to the International Motor Show and they took it to the American Motor Show and all of that. So it became quite famous. They actually built 3, I think it was. They built 3. So they built this one that Howard's on, which is the original one. They also built an American one, which was blue and had headlights. And then the one that Howard's on, they crashed it and it destroyed it. So they built a replica of that. And that has vanished. And no one knows where it is. Ooh. Not even Mazda know where it is. So somebody nicked it, obviously. And has got it out. Got it.
What the hell they got it out of?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's actually a Samsonite suitcase it's in, so it's good quality, Mark. But it weighs 32 kilos, so you'd have to be flying first class or pay for extra baggage to get it on the on the plane. Cost £5,000 to build, and these days its spiritual successor is right at the bottom there.
I saw that, yeah.
That is the Honda Moto Compacto. And you can buy those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Looks pretty
they're
cool,
on the
yeah.
market. It's obviously it's an electric like mini moped thing. And it cost you about $1,000 to get that one of those.
That's not bad. I'd get one of those.
Yeah. Looks fun, doesn't it?
They did because they look fun. Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Fun little...
That would be banging around the streets of Amsterdam, right?
It would actually, yeah. Wouldn't even have to wear a helmet.
No, of course not.
And that's really the episode, apart from one last thing, Mark. This era of Tomorrow's World, we've mentioned it before, they put a little factoid at the end of the credits. And this factoid here has a picture of Jupiter. And it says, this program will reach Jupiter in 22 minutes. Now, can you think of any films, science fiction films, that involve signals being sent from the Earth to Jupiter, Mark? I'm racking my brains. I'm just trying to think whether there's anything.
It was, yeah. I can think of at least one, Russ.
Yeah.
It's a shame we retired that particular category.
Do you think it's deliberate reference, Mark?
Do I think it's a deliberate reference? No, I think a lot of the Kubrick references are just like subconscious nods, aren't they? So it's almost like his blood is their blood.
And actually, I did look up. I checked their figures there. According to space.com, it takes the quickest when Jupiter's at its closest. The speed of light to Jupiter is 33 minutes. So I don't know whether they take into account that the fact that this program started
half an hour.
So if they actually worked out exactly how far away Jupiter is at this particular time, and then worked out and then knocked off half an hour from it.
If that's the case, that's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Having watched the episode, I don't know. That's an interesting one to think about. Yeah.
I think I prefer the episode more than you did, Mark. To be honest, by the sounds of it.
I think you did. I am quite tired, and I think that's really chipped away at my enjoyment of this episode.
That's right. I'll edit out all the yawns.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Should we bring it home then?
Yeah, let's bring it into land. Crunch those numbers. So, first things first, the year in context, Russ. Cinema box office.
Here we go. Number 10, Jungle Fever. Number 9, True Identity. Yeah, Lenny Henry's attempt.
That's exactly
Lenny
what I was
Henry's attempt to
picturing.
break Hollywood.
Yeah, with his proto-white chicks, right?
Yes, yeah. Weirdly, I was just yesterday listening to the Alexi Sale podcast where he was talking about that. Number 8, A Rage in Harlem. Which
don't know that one.
is directed by Bill Duke, of course, who played Mac in Predator.
Oh, okay.
Number 7, Regarding Henry. There we go. Number 6, FX2, The Deadly Art of Illusion.
Deadly Art of Illusion. Yay.
That bit with I love the fact he's got that animatronic clown. That is
we all remember the clown.
Clearly just a man in a clown suit. Small man in a clown suit. Yeah. Number 5, Jacob's Ladder. Never seen that.
Okay, that's good.
Number 4, Life Stinks.
Okay.
Number 3, Stepping Out. Liza Minnelli.
Oh, okay. Don't remember that.
Number 2, here we go. Really big hitters now. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh, gosh. Oh, well, I think we know what's going to be the pop charts then. Go on. Number 1.
Number 1, Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Oh, wow. God, 2 genuinely big hitters, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of the pop charts, Russ.
Number 10, What Can You Do For Me by the Utah Saints. Number 9, Charlie by the Prodigy.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that that's Kenny Everett doing the cat?
Does that ring a bell? Feels like it should do. No, I don't think I did know
Yeah.
that. Maybe I did.
Number 8, Peace by Sabrina Johnston. Not sure I know that one.
No.
Number 7 is a good one. Everybody's Free to Feel Good, Rosala.
Yep, good tune.
Number 6, another good one. Sunshine on a Rainy Day by Zoe.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I rewatched that when I saw that. And her dancing, you would not want to be standing next to her on a dance floor. She'd absolutely have your eye out. Her arms are all over the place.
Wow.
Number 5, I'm Too Sexy, right said Fred.
I definitely had the Smash Hits Poll Winners Party double LP.
Oh, really?
With these songs on, this year. Yeah.
Number 4, Love to Hate You, Erasure.
Yeah.
Number 3, Insanity, Oceanic. Number 2, as mentioned in, was it last episode or episode before? Let's Talk About Sex, Salt and Pepper.
Oh, yeah.
And number 1, can you guess what is number 1, Mark?
I'm going to have to, using the context clues that you've listed throughout the entire episode, Russ, I think it might be, is it Bryan Adams, Russ?
Yeah, it is, yeah. It's currently, it's 14th week at number 1.
Oh, still another 2 to go, right?
I can't remember now. Impressive stuff.
Prices.
Well, I managed to find somebody on Reddit has found a newspaper page from 1991, and it's an Asda advert.
Oh.
Your favourites at prices your favour. It Asda to be Asda be Asda, which is
Jesus, that's really clumsy from beginning to end. No wonder you failed to read that.
Yeah.
Properly.
Jar of Maxwell House, $2.59. 6 cans of beans, $1.40. Tin of Prince's Tuna Chunks, 45 pence. 4-pack of orange juice cartons, $2.29. 7-pack of Kit Kats, 53 pence. 7 bags of crunchy Wotsits, 89 pence. Packet of digestives, 45 pence. And a tin of Pedigree Chum, 37 pence.
Gosh. Argos catalogue?
Well, Mark, it is, of course, the Russell Hobbs classic stainless steel kettle. Hand-polished stainless steel body.
Hand-polished?
Everyone in the factory is called Russell, and they all got polishing cloths. Plastic lid, water level indicator, maximum capacity 3 pints, 2,400 watts, non-slip feet, fitted with a plug, £29.50.
Bargain at twice the price. Magazine covers?
New Scientist has The Rhino's Last Stand. Scientific American, special issue, Communications, Computers and Networks, including an article by Al Gore. Popular Science, War of the Wells, Liquid Nitrogen tames Kuwait's oil fires. Completely forgotten that the Gulf War was even on.
Yeah.
An electronic co-pilot for your car. Time magazine, is the CIA obsolete? And Lost Tribes, Lost Knowledge. Fortean Times, Octopus Invasion. Was Beethoven Black? Crop Circle Harvest. The Tamworth Triangle, Hell Discovered, Hiccup Records, Mexican Wolf Boys, Voodoo Dominoes, Chinese Haircutting Panic, and Magnetic Humans. Private Eye, Carey Riot Shock, and it's got a picture of Archbishop George Carey holding a child, and the child says, "Your hat's on fire," and he says, "I blame the government." It's a Viz has a summer special issue. Don't miss our sensational Summer Fate featuring Tombola, beer tent, wobbly kids castle, and much more. To be opened by lively lad Rodney Bewes. And Playboy, Vavavoom, it's the Barbie twins bust out. Also, Playboy interviews Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder. And It's a Boy, It's a Girl, It's Tula. Which I'm not sure what that's about. And Playboy's pro football forecast.
Okay, brilliant. So let's start the order proper then. And we'll start with our question we always ask first, Russ. What was the most important invention in this particular episode?
I'm going to say that, really, although not much is made of it, certainly from my purposes, it's the translating thing.
Oh, interesting. I would have said the Indian satellite that, helped them protect from cyclones.
Oh, yeah.
But
they could have borrowed somebody else's satellite, couldn't they?
Well, that's the thing. Whereas I suppose the translator thing, it really is. They are making something new, aren't they? Because I suppose the cyclone thing wasn't really about the satellite so much. It was about the entire protocol that they had developed. Because basically, it's kind of patronizing, isn't it? It's like a kind of implying that, the idiots who live on the coast don't trust scientists. They only trust astrologers. So we've had to put in this system because otherwise we can't trust them not to kill themselves. Yeah, go on then. Translator it is then. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Most worthless invention?
The Mazda suitcase car isn't going to... I mean, I like it. It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
The solar powered car's pretty.
The light bulb? You couldn't even track it down.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't track that down. No.
Biosphere.
I mean,
2.
Yeah. Although, I mean, they did later on when they were using it for their climate change experiments.
That's true.
They did get some use out of it then.
And we wouldn't have had Biodome without it, I suppose.
No. Yeah, they put the light bulb because I don't think it exists.
Yeah, no. Yeah, okay, cool. Most inaccurate prediction of the future?
Whatever that everything the astrologer said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go with that. I think that's perfectly fair. Worst screw-up? We've got a lot to choose from here.
Kate, Howard, and John all fluff their lines at some point. I know, noticeably, Judith doesn't. Of course, she doesn't.
No.
Also, there's an apostrophe missing on Europe's.
Yeah,
on
that was actually
intro
quite...
to the baby segment.
Yeah, there was a little info text popped up. Yeah, I'm going to go with that, if that's okay, because I'll forgive presenters, especially John, kind of slightly tripping over the words in a live broadcast, especially the first episode of the series. But to miss an apostrophe from text, I think it's unforgivable. So yeah, I think that's a great chat. I completely forgot about that. Best attempt at making something boring interesting. I mean,
Are suitcases boring?
Oh, suitcases boring. Not if they have a goddamn
exactly.
in them. No, yeah, that's true. Yeah, go on then. Best use of music?
There is only one. I checked. There's only one piece of music in the whole episode. Yeah. They play some sitar music, predictably during the Indian cyclone element segment.
Do we have to pick that?
There's no other music.
Oh, fine. Pick that then. Best or worst use of furniture?
Well, it's Kate's chair, surely.
It has to be Kate's chair, yeah. And I think that really fits into the worst use of furniture. I'm glad we added that worst in. Most notable clothing?
Bolo tie.
Bolo tie, my friend. I can't wait to see if we see that again.
Yeah.
I suspect not. Did we see anything in the future that made it to... Sorry, did we see anything in the episode that made it through to the future?
Yeah, a few things.
It's quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
So the sperm counter, surprises that made it through, but it did.
Yeah.
The cyclone prevention system has clearly made it through.
Yeah.
We'll leave the diary one alone. Obviously, diary segments make it through. The light bulb didn't, because we couldn't track it down. But the idea of moving away from that kind of filament design, incandescent design, clearly did.
Yeah.
I do find it delightful that Biosphere 2 actually ended up serving a really good purpose. So yes, even if it got lost in the weeds. And robots made it through. So that's actually quite a big hit rate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is quite good. What does this episode tell us about the 25th of September 1991? I think this is this episode, because it's clearly made a break with whatever came before it. It is clearly saying that, the 80s are dead, my friend. This is a new decade.
Yes, yeah, very much so, yeah. Yeah. It's trying a whole load of new things. They're throwing a whole new load of new things at us that didn't exist one series ago. And not all of them are positive. Not all of them stick.
No.
But definitely a bold statement.
This isn't your granddad's Tomorrow's World.
Yeah. McCann and his knitwear are a distant memory. It's big, colourful, blocky jackets from now on.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the first segments to talk about the internet, not so much as an engineering project, but dealing with the reality of having to, as a social, exactly. And so that, which I think, presages kind of the end of Tomorrow's World as we know it ultimately, but we weren't to know that back then. So let's look at our tropes then. So presenter having to speak over louder sounds.
Yes, Howard has to speak over the engine of the suitcase.
He does. You're absolutely right. Good spot. Something to do with oil rigs. They barely can't stop mentioning it.
Yeah.
Suspiciously obvious brand name on the ad-free BBC.
No, they even peeled the Mazda sticker off because if you look at any other pictures of that on the internet, it's got a big Mazda sticker on the side of it, and when Howard's driving it, he hasn't. So they must have made an effort there.
In fact, Suzuki are the ones who get the free ad from that particular segment. Yeah, clear and blatant lying. I don't believe that automaton is 300 years old.
No, well, I mean, who knows? It might just be, Japanese engineering is very good. It might just have lasted.
Oh, you're winning me back over, Russ. Are you saying I shouldn't tick that box? All right, fine. No evil farmers?
No, I can't think of any farmers.
I think there is casual sexism. I think I agree with your observation about the black and white picture of the woman. Lab space filled with darkness and coloured lights. That is to come. But I don't think we have it yet. Were there any Dutch angles?
No, you only mentioned no.
Item presented from a gantry?
No, item presented from a ski lift, but not a gantry.
Yeah, but no. Dad joke from Howard Stableford?
No, I mean, probably the most humorous thing he says is he talks about the suitcase possibly turning back into a suitcase while he's driving or something like that, but it's not really a joke.
No,
it's not really
a joke. That doesn't count. Episode ends on a damn script?
No,
I don't
Howard
think so.
going,
that smile would have lit up your living room, I think.
Yeah.
Woolard and McCann abroad or Carmen in a small European town?
Yes.
Any lasers?
No.
And they don't mention magnets, do they?
The light bulb, when she's demonstrating the light bulb, she's got two big electromagnets.
That's true. Yeah, go on then. There are boats.
Mm-hmm.
The Indian fishermen use boats, so I think, and that's quite important to that segment. And did they travel to Shepherd's Bush? They did not travel to Shepherd's Bush.
No, it was all exotic locations this week, all on the outside.
Flush with cash. So the only thing I have left to say, Russ, is that there are 1,409 episodes of Tomorrow's World. We have audited 44, which means, my friend, there are merely 1,365 episodes of this rapidly diminishing resource of entertainment for us left to audit.
Oh, Mark. Oh. But I feel we need to get through a few more before the year ends, Mark. We've let our listeners down. So
we have.
Yeah. So we'll make sure we get a couple more in the bag before Crimbo. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Oh, defo. Yeah. We will pick up the pace.
Maybe you'll be in a better mood next time.
Only if you're unlucky.
Well, Mark, I need to go because I've organised a little memorial for John Diamond to commemorate him.
Bit late, but nice.
So I've invited all the famous people called Diamond to come along.
Have you?
Yeah. So I've invited obviously Anne Diamond.
Oh, of course. Yeah, she wasn't in my list. Yeah.
Jim Diamond, the Scottish musician.
Jim Diamond.
Yeah. Neil Diamond, obviously he's probably most famous of the Diamonds. Yeah. Lou Diamond Phillips.
Of course, Lou Diamond Phillips, of course.
Who just about qualifies.
Just about,
yeah. And I'm not sure whether I should have invited him, but I have also invited Dustin Diamond.
Oh my God, is he going to bring Dominic as well?
Oh yeah, of course, Dominic Diamond. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about Dominic Diamond. I can't believe it.
Yeah, Dustin's a bit of a wild card, Russ.
Yeah. But I mean, hopefully that'll go well. I'm sure they'd all get on. I don't know, do you reckon they're all related? I'm sure they are.
Yes, I do.
It'll be a family reunion, mightn't it?
Family reunion, Russ. They're going to wonder why you're there.
I'm like a jeweller.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Anyway, so nice to see you again, Mark. Nice to finally get an episode in the bag. And until next time, if you are on the internet, we will see you tomorrow.
Goodbye.